Throughout human history, over 200 million people have faced the terror of history's deadliest pandemics, experiencing symptoms from high fever and diarrhea to oozing sores and total organ failure. These diseases spread mercilessly through continents and across oceans, but for those who survived, life somehow continued in the shadow of death. Here's what life was really like during history's most devastating pandemics. So, yeah, if these stories work for you, subscribe. And I'm curious, what time is it where you are? Comment your location and time too. Kind of fun seeing all the different places. Someone from Iceland commented once and I had to Google what time zone that even is. All right, tonight it's historic pandemics. But first things first. Get yourself comfortable, and I mean properly comfortable. This is going to be a good one. Your eyes snap open. It's still dark. Something's wrong. The straw mattress beneath you feels damp with sweat. Your entire body is burning up, but you're shivering. Your throat is raw, like you've swallowed broken pottery. This isn't just a normal fever. Athens, 430 BCE. You're in the middle of the Peloponnesian War, and now something far worse is sweeping through the city. Water, you croak, but your voice barely makes a sound. Your tongue feels swollen, filling your mouth. Unlike the cool glass waiting beside your bed at home, here you're lucky if you get a clay cup of water that's been sitting out all night. Honestly, you might not even get that, because whoever was supposed to be taking care of you, well, they might be dead too. Your head pounds. This isn't like any headache you've had before. This is like someone's taken a hammer to your skull, behind your eyes, in your temples, at the base of your neck. It's everywhere. You can barely think straight. Your body feels like it's been thrown from a cliff, every muscle aching in ways you didn't know were possible. The room spins as you try to sit up. Bad idea. You fall back, the rough straw poking through the thin cloth beneath you. Nothing like your memory foam mattress back home, is it? Outside, you hear wailing. Someone's lost another family member. That's been the soundtrack of Athens for weeks now. Mourning, crying, the occasional prayer to gods who don't seem to be listening. Cleon, are you awake? A voice comes from the doorway. Your sister, Thalia. Thank the gods she's still alive. I'm awake, you manage. Barely. She steps in, a clay lamp casting shadows across her face. Even in the dim light, you can see she looks terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, her normally carefully arranged hair hanging in tangles. She hasn't slept properly in days. You need to drink something, she says, bringing a cup to your lips. The water is warm and tastes faintly of the clay pot it's been stored in, but it's the most amazing thing you've ever tasted, soothing your throat for just a moment. How bad is it today, you ask, though you're not sure you want the answer. Thalia sits on the edge of your bed. They're saying a quarter of the city might be dead already. The bodies... She stops, swallowing hard. They can't bury them fast enough. Some people are just piling them up and burning them. In a city of around 400,000 people, that's 100,000 dead. The number is too big to really comprehend. That's like, what, a decent-sized modern football stadium completely wiped out? Your stomach churns, and not just from the fever. Have you heard from father? Your father had been called to the walls, still trying to defend the city against the Spartans, even as this plague tore through it. No, Thalia says, her voice flat, but Nicias from next door said he saw him 2 days ago. He was still standing then. That's something, I guess. You try to sit up again, slowly this time. The room only spins a little. Progress. I need to show you something, you say, pulling at the neck of your tunic. These weren't here yesterday. Thalia leans closer, holding the lamp near your chest. Her sharp intake of breath tells you it's not good. Pustules, she whispers. The rash, just like Thucydides described. Ah, Thucydides, the general who survived the plague and wrote about it in excruciating detail. Great guy, really thorough, but right now you're not thrilled to be living out his medical observations. Awesome, you say, letting your head fall back. So I've got the full package deal. Don't talk like that, Thalia snaps. Plenty of people are surviving this. You just need to rest, drink, and... She trails off because honestly, nobody really knows what to do. This is 430 BCE. The height of medicine right now is basically hope you get better with some herbs thrown in for good measure. I'm going to get you some barley porridge, she says, standing. You need to eat something. As she leaves, you're left alone with the sound of Athens dying around you. From somewhere in the distance, you hear shouting, not mourning this time, angry voices, things breaking. That's the other thing Thucydides wrote about, how quickly society breaks down when death is everywhere. People are looting, stealing, doing whatever they want. The normal rules don't apply when you think you're going to die anyway. Some are spending everything they have on one last good time. Others are taking what they want by force. You close your eyes, trying to block it all out. Your body alternates between burning hot and freezing cold. Your throat feels like you've been gargling with sand, and now there's the pustules, little fluid-filled bumps spreading across your chest. Good times in ancient Athens, huh? Here. Thalia's back, holding a wooden bowl of something steaming. The smell turns your stomach, but you know you need to eat. The porridge is bland, just boiled barley with a drizzle of olive oil and a pinch of salt. But it's food, and that's more than a lot of people in Athens have right now. I saw Pericles yesterday, Thalia says as you force down a spoonful. That gets your attention. Pericles, the great leader of Athens, the man who ordered everyone inside the city walls for protection against Sparta, inadvertently creating the perfect conditions for disease to spread like wildfire. How is he, you ask? Sick, she says simply, like everyone else. That's the thing about this plague. It doesn't care if you're rich or poor, powerful or weak. Pericles, with all his wealth and influence, is just as vulnerable as the poorest slave in Athens. Some people are saying this is punishment from the gods, Thalia says, looking out the small window. The sky is turning pink as dawn approaches, for bringing so many people inside the walls, for the war. And what do you think, you ask, pushing bowl away after a few bites. That's all you can manage. She's quiet for a moment. I think diseases don't care what the gods want. They just are. Pretty progressive thinking for 430 BCE. You're proud of your fictional sister. A sudden cramping in your gut doubles you over. Great, the diarrhea phase has begun. Thucydides mentioned this too. Your body is about to expel everything from both ends. Bucket, you gasp, and Thalia is quick, sliding a wooden pail next to your bed just in time. I'll spare you the graphic details, but let's just say the next hour is unpleasant, very unpleasant. Ancient Greek plumbing isn't exactly equipped for this kind of situation, and by ancient Greek plumbing, I mean no plumbing at all. By midday, you're exhausted. Drenched in sweat and your throat is burning from vomiting. Thalia has been amazing, emptying the bucket, bringing fresh water, wiping your face with a damp cloth, but you can see she's swaying on her feet. Thalia, you rasp. Are you feeling okay? She won't meet your eyes. I'm fine, just tired. Thalia, she sighs, sitting heavily on the stool beside your bed. My head hurts, since this morning. Your heart sinks. The headache is how it starts. You should lie down, you say. Rest. Who's going to take care of you? She asks, and there's a note of panic in her voice. I'm through the worst of it, you lie. You have no idea if that's true. Just for an hour, please. She hesitates, then Nods, too exhausted to argue. "I'll be in the next room. Call if you need anything." After she leaves, you try to stand up. The room tilts alarmingly, but you manage to stay upright, holding onto the wall for support. You need to see what's happening outside. The street below your window is almost unrecognizable from just a week ago. There are bodies. Not many. Most have been collected, but a few lie where they fell, covered with cloth. No one wants to touch them. People move quickly, heads down, keeping distance from each other. Some wear cloths over their faces, though no one knows if that helps. Others carry herbs and flowers to their noses, believing the sweet scents will ward off the disease. A group of men stagger past, clearly drunk despite the early hour. They're laughing too loudly, arms around each other's shoulders. One carries a wine jug. They're celebrating like it's their last day alive. For some of them, it probably is. As you watch, two of them break away from the group, heading toward a house across the street. The door is ajar, never a good sign these days. It means the occupants are either dead or too sick to care about security. The men disappear inside, looting. It's becoming common. With death everywhere, the normal rules of society are collapsing. Why not steal? Why not take whatever you want? The gods have abandoned Athens anyway. You're reminded of what Thucydides wrote. The catastrophe was so overwhelming that men, not knowing what would happen next to them, became indifferent to every rule of religion or law. You turn away from the window, suddenly dizzy again. Making your way back to the bed, you collapse onto it, your brief energy spent. Your eyes close and you drift into a fevered sleep filled with strange dreams. You're running through Athens, but the streets keep changing. Bodies pile higher and higher until they form walls on either side. Pericles stands atop them, shouting something you can't understand. The Spartans are at the gates, but they're not men. They're giant rats with human faces. You wake with a start, disoriented. The room is dark again. You've slept the whole day away. "Thalia," your voice is stronger now, which is something. No answer. "Thalia," louder this time. You hear a faint sound from the next room. Pushing yourself up, you stagger to the doorway. Thalia is on her pallet, curled into a ball, shivering despite the summer heat. When she looks up at you, her eyes are bloodshot. "You should be in bed," she says, but her voice is weak. "So should you." You sit beside her, placing a hand on her forehead. She's burning up. "I'll get you some water," you say, and she doesn't protest, which tells you how bad she feels. The water jug is nearly empty. You'll need to go to the public fountain tomorrow, assuming you're strong enough, assuming the water bearers are still working, assuming the water hasn't somehow become contaminated and made everything worse. You help Thalia drink, then soak a cloth and place it on her forehead. "Is this what it felt like?" she asks. "At the beginning?" You nod. "Unfortunately, yes. But hey, I'm already feeling better." Another lie, but a kind one. Your head still pounds and your body aches, but the vomiting has stopped and you haven't noticed any new pustules. "Do you think Father is okay?" she asks, her voice small. "Of course," you say automatically. "He's the strongest person we know." Neither of you mentions that strength means nothing against this plague. You've seen athletes and soldiers fall just as quickly as children and the elderly. "Try to sleep," you tell her. "Things often look better in the morning, though in plague-ridden Athens, that's rarely true. Each morning seems to bring new horrors." As Thalia drifts off, you sit in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the city. It's quieter now than it used to be. Fewer people out, fewer shops open, fewer children playing. Athens is holding its breath, waiting to see who will survive and what will be left. You wonder about the Spartans outside the walls. Are they suffering too? Has the plague reached them? There are rumors it has that some of their soldiers are falling ill, but the Spartans are notorious for hiding weakness, so it's hard to know for sure. The cramping in your stomach returns, less severe this time, but still painful. You grab the bucket again, just in case. This is the reality of living through a pandemic in ancient times. No hospitals, no doctors with effective treatments, no understanding of germs or how diseases spread, just suffering, fear, and hoping your body is strong enough to fight off whatever invisible enemy has invaded it. You must have dozed off, because suddenly it's morning again. Pale light filters through the window. Your mouth tastes terrible. Your body still aches, but your head feels clearer. The fever might be breaking. Thalia is still asleep, her breathing shallow but regular. The cloth on her forehead has dried out. You dampen it again with the last of the water. It's time to venture outside. You need more water and maybe some food if any markets are still operating. The thought of walking through the plague-ridden streets makes your heart race, but you have no choice. You splash your face with a handful of water, run fingers through your matted hair, and pull a clean tunic over your head, wincing as the fabric brushes against the pustules on your chest. They're drying out now, scabbing over, hopefully a good sign. At the door, you hesitate. This is the first time you've left the house since falling ill. The world outside feels dangerous in a way it never has before. "I'll be back soon," you whisper to Thalia, though she doesn't stir. The street is quieter than it appeared from the window. A few people move about, keeping their distance from each other. Everyone looks haunted, hollow-eyed, either recovering from the plague or waiting for it to strike. The water fountain is 3 streets over, in a small square that used to be the centre of neighbourhood life. Women would gather there in the mornings, filling their jugs and exchanging gossip. Children would play around the stone basin, occasionally cooling off with a splash in the summer heat. Now, as you approach, you see only a handful of people. They stand well apart, waiting their turn without the usual chatter. One woman is openly weeping as she fills her jug. Another has a cloth tied over her face. You take your place in the sparse line, the empty water jug heavy in your still weak arms. The sun is climbing higher, and despite the early hour, the heat is already building. Your tunic sticks to your back with sweat that might be from fever or might just be from the Greek summer. "Cleon, is that you?" You turn to see Stephanos, the potter whose workshop is next to your father's smithy. His normally robust frame looks shrunken, his tunic hanging loose on his shoulders. "Stephanos, you're alive." It's become the standard greeting in Athens. "More or less?" He gestures to his left arm, which he's holding stiffly at his side. "The pustules left scars. Can't feel 2 of my fingers properly." He wiggles them to demonstrate. "Not ideal for a potter." "I'm sorry," you say, because what else can you say? At least he's alive, which is more than can be said for so many others. "Your father," Stephanos says, his voice dropping. "Have you heard?" Your stomach clenches, and not from the plague this time. "No." "What about him?" Stephanos looks uncomfortable. "He's in the temple of Asclepius. He fell ill 3 days ago at the walls." The temple of Asclepius, god of healing. It's become a makeshift hospital, though hospital is a generous term for a place where the sick are laid out on pallets while priests burn offerings and pray for divine intervention. Is he? You can't finish the sentence. "Alive last I heard," Stephanos says quickly. "I saw him yesterday. He was asking for you and Thalia." Relief floods through you, followed quickly by determination. You need to go to him. But first, water. When your turn comes, you fill the jug quickly. The water looks clear, but who knows? It could be carrying the very disease you're trying to recover from, but without it, you'll definitely die. So it's a risk you have to take. I have to check on my sister. Then I'm going to the temple, you tell Stephanos. He nods. I'll keep an eye on your house. There have been thieves. Thank you, you say, meaning it. Despite everything falling apart around you, there are still good people trying to help each other. The walk back feels longer, the full water jug growing heavier with each step. By the time you reach your door, your arms are trembling with exhaustion. Inside, Thalia is awake, sitting up on her pallet. Her face is flushed with fever, but her eyes are alert. "Where did you go?" she demands. "I woke up and you were gone." "Water," you say, holding up the jug. "And news. Father's alive. He's at the temple of Asclepius." Her face crumples with relief. "Thank the gods. When can we see him?" "I'm going now," you say, pouring some water into a cup for her. "You need to rest." "I'm coming with you," she says, already trying to stand. "Thalia, you can barely walk." "I don't care." There's a stubborn set to her jaw that you recognize all too well. "He's my father too." You know better than to argue when she gets like this. "Fine, but we go slowly, and you tell me if you need to stop." The temple of Asclepius sits on a hill overlooking the Agora, Athens' main marketplace. Usually the walk would take about 20 minutes from your house. Today, with both of you weakened by illness, it takes over an hour. The streets become more crowded as you approach the Agora, though it's nothing like the bustling centre it was before the plague. Some shops are open, selling food and necessities, but there are no casual browsers, no groups of men discussing politics, no children darting between market stalls. "It's so quiet," Thalia whispers, leaning heavily on your arm. "I know. The silence of Athens is perhaps more unsettling than the visible signs of the plague." The temple looms ahead, its white columns stark against the blue sky. In normal times it would be a place of quiet reverence, with the sick making offerings and sleeping within its walls, hoping for healing dreams from the god. Now it's overflowing. Pallets line the steps and the surrounding grounds. Priests and attendants move among them, offering water and words of comfort, but little else. The smell hits you first. Sickness, unwashed bodies, waste buckets that aren't emptied often enough. You feel Thalia tense beside you, but she straightens her shoulders and keeps walking. An attendant meets you at the base of the steps. "Who are you looking for?" "Aristides the blacksmith," you say. "Our father. We heard he was brought here." The man's face softens slightly. "The big man with the beard? From the west wall?" You nod, hope rising. "Follow me." He leads you through the rows of the sick and dying, up the temple steps and into the main chamber. Inside, it's cooler but more crowded, with barely enough space to walk between the pallets. There, the attendant points to a corner where a large figure lies still on a pallet. You hurry over, Thalia close behind. As you approach, you can see your father's chest rising and falling. He's alive, but his normally ruddy face is pale and covered with sweat. His powerful arms, so strong from years at the forge, lie limp at his sides. "Father," Thalia chokes out, dropping to her knees beside him. His eyes flutter open, unfocused at first, then sharpening as he recognizes you. "My children," he whispers, his voice a rasp. "You're alive." "Oh, so are you," you say, taking his hand. It's burning hot, the skin dry. "Barely." He tries to smile, but it turns into a grimace of pain. "The gods are testing me." "Save your strength," Thalia says, placing a cool hand on his forehead. "We're here now." Around you, the temple is a scene of quiet desperation. Priests move from pallet to pallet, offering prayers and sometimes medicine, herbs and concoctions that probably do little good but provide comfort nonetheless. Family members sit with the sick, some weeping, others just staring blankly, as if they can't quite believe what's happening. In one corner, a priestess is chanting, burning herbs that fill the air with fragrant smoke. The sick nearest to her breathe it in desperately, hoping for some relief from their suffering. This is medicine in 430 BCE, a mixture of primitive herbal remedies, religious ritual, and hoping for the best. No antibiotics, no understanding of hygiene, no concept of viruses or bacteria. Just people doing what they've always done in times of illness, praying it will be enough. As you sit with your father, watching his laboured breathing, you realise this is what pandemic survival has always been about. Not just your own body's fight against disease, but the struggle to care for those you love, to hold society together when everything is falling apart, to find meaning in suffering. Thalia catches your eye across your father's pallet. Despite everything, her own illness, the horrors you've both witnessed, the uncertainty of the future, there's a flicker of determination in her gaze, a refusal to give up, and in that moment you understand why some people survive plagues while others succumb. It's not just about physical strength or luck, it's about finding a reason to keep going, day after day, hour after hour, breath after breath. As the sun begins to set, casting long shadows through the temple's columns, your father's fever seems to ease slightly. His breathing becomes more regular, and he even manages to drink a little water. You should go home, he tells you and Thalia. Rest, come back tomorrow. We're staying, Thalia says firmly, and you nod in agreement. Outside, Athens settles into an uneasy night. The usual sounds of evening, music, laughter, the calls of vendors selling their last wares, are absent. Instead, there's just the occasional wail of mourning, the hurried footsteps of those rushing to reach home before dark, and the eerie silence of a city whose very soul is under siege. Inside the temple, lamps are lit, casting a warm glow over the suffering. Some of the sick sleep fitfully, others stare at the ceiling, lost in their own thoughts. A few murmur prayers or call for water. You and Thalia take turns dozing, making sure one of you is always awake to watch over your father. The night passes slowly, marked by the changing of the priests, the moans of the sick, and the awful final stillness that comes over some pallets. But your father makes it through the night, and as dawn breaks over Athens, bringing another day of uncertainty and fear, you allow yourself a small flicker of hope, because that's the thing about pandemics. Even the worst ones in history, they don't last forever. And even in the darkest moments, there are people fighting, caring, finding ways to survive. People like you, people like Thalia, people like your father, clinging to life with the same stubborn strength he brings to his forge. The plague will pass, eventually. Athens will rebuild. Those who survive will tell stories of these days, of the time when death walked the streets and life itself seemed to hang in the balance. And maybe, just maybe, they'll remember not just the horror, but the moments of courage and kindness that shone through the darkness. Like the attendant who brings you fresh water without being asked, like Stephanos keeping watch over your empty house, like you and Thalia refusing to leave your father's side. This is what it means to live through history's worst pandemics, not just the suffering but the fighting back, the hanging on, the refusing to let death have the final word. As the new day brightens, your father opens his eyes, clearer now, more present. "Still here?" he asks, looking at you and Thalia. "Always," Thalia says, squeezing his hand. And in that moment, against all odds, you believe you might all survive this after all. The world shifts around you. Athens fades away, the temple of Asclepius dissolving like mist. For a moment, you're suspended between times, between lives. Then reality solidifies again, and you're somewhere new. Someone new. Your name is Marius, and you're a soldier in the Roman Empire. The year is 165 CE. You wake up to pounding on your door. Your head is throbbing, your mouth dry as sand. The thin wool blanket is soaked with sweat despite the winter chill. Marius, open up. The voice belongs to Gaius, your commander. You try to stand, but your legs buckle. Something's wrong. Very wrong. Your skin feels like it's burning from the inside. I'm coming, you croak, but your voice is barely a whisper. The door crashes open and Gaius stands there, silhouetted against the morning light. His face is half covered with a cloth and he's keeping his distance. Gods above, you look terrible, he says, staying firmly in the doorway. You've got it, haven't you? Got what? But even as you ask, you know. The sickness that's been spreading through Rome for weeks now. The one that came back with the legions from the Eastern campaign against the Parthians. They're calling it the Antonine Plague after Emperor Antoninus, though some are starting to call it the Plague of Galen after the physician who's been documenting its spread. Whatever the name, it's been ripping through the empire like fire through dry grass. You know what Gaius says grimly? The plague. Half the barracks is down with it already. You try to respond, but a coughing fit doubles you over. When you straighten up, you notice spots of blood on your hand. Gaius sees it too and takes another step back. I'll send someone with food and water. Stay here. Don't come out. But the patrol, forget the patrol. You're quarantined. Emperor's orders. He's already backing away. Anyone showing symptoms is to remain isolated. With that, he's gone, pulling the door shut behind him. You hear him shouting orders to someone outside, probably telling them to mark your door so others know there's sickness inside. Great. Just great. You slump back onto your cot, the world spinning. The small room, little more than a cell, really feels both too hot and too cold at once. Your standard-issue legionary tunic is plastered to your skin with sweat. Nothing like the breathable fabrics you're used to in your bed at home. No memory foam pillows here, just a straw-stuffed sack that smells faintly of mould and the previous occupant. How did this happen? You were fine yesterday, maybe a little tired after the long march, but nothing unusual, nothing to suggest you were about to be flattened by whatever this is. Your mind drifts back to the campaign, 3 years fighting in Mesopotamia, 3 years of blood, dust and boredom, punctuated by moments of sheer terror. You'd survived it all, the battles, the ambushes, the scorching heat and freezing nights of the desert. Only to come home and get taken down by some invisible enemy. The irony would be funny if you weren't so miserable. A scraping sound at the door interrupts your self-pity. Someone has left a jug of water and a bowl of something outside. You hear their retreating footsteps hurrying away from the contamination zone. It takes all your strength to crawl to the door and retrieve the items. The water jug is heavy clay and you nearly drop it. The bowl contains a thin gruel barley, some herbs, maybe a bit of olive oil, standard sick food. You drink deeply from the jug, the water easing your parched throat. But almost immediately, your stomach rebels. You barely make it to the chamber pot in the corner before everything comes back up. So that's how it's going to be. Great. Outside, life in Rome continues. You can hear the sounds of the city through your small window, vendors calling their wares, the clatter of carts on stone streets, the endless hum of thousands of people living on top of each other. But there's something different about the soundscape now. There are gaps, silences where there shouldn't be, fewer voices, fewer carts, and occasionally the unmistakable wail of mourning. Rome is changing. You can feel it even from your sickbed. You drift in and out of consciousness as the day wears on. The fever rises and falls like the tide, bringing strange dreams when it peaks. You see your mother, dead these 10 years, standing at the foot of your cot. You see battlefields from the Eastern Campaign, but the enemy soldiers have no faces. You see Emperor Marcus Aurelius himself wearing a crown of burning thorns. When you wake fully, it's dark. Someone has left more water and food while you slept and lit the small oil lamp on the table. The flame casts jumping shadows on the walls. Your skin feels strange, tight somehow. You hold your arm up to the lamplight and nearly cry out in shock. Raised bumps cover your skin from wrist to elbow. Small, hard pustules that itch and burn. You check your other arm and find the same. Pulling up your tunic, you see they're spreading across your chest too. Not good, you mutter to yourself. Really not good. You've seen this before on the march home from Mesopotamia, soldiers breaking out in similar rashes, then the fever spiking, then, well, about a quarter of them didn't make it. The rest were never quite the same. A knock on the door startles you. You're not expecting anyone. Food deliveries just appear without announcement. Who is it? Your voice sounds terrible, a raspy shadow of itself. It's Livia. Your heart jumps. Livia, the daughter of the cloth merchant whose shop sits beside the barracks, the woman whose smile you've been thinking about for weeks, ever since you returned from the East. You can't be here, you call out. I'm sick, the plague. I know, her voice is calm. Open the door, Marius. Against your better judgment, you shamble to the door and pull it open a crack. Livia stands there, a basket in her hands, a cloth tied over her nose and mouth. You shouldn't be here, you repeat. Probably not, she agrees, but my father had this sickness last month and recovered, and I've been helping at the temple, tending to the sick. If I'm going to catch it, I would have by now. She pushes past you into the room, setting her basket on the table. Besides, someone needs to make sure you soldiers don't die of neglect. The army's idea of nursing is throwing bread at you twice a day and hoping for the best. You're too weak to argue, collapsing back onto your cot as she busies herself with the contents of her basket. My father thinks it's a punishment from the gods, she says conversationally, crushing something in a small mortar and pestle she's brought, for the Eastern Campaign, for disturbing sacred sites. What do you think? You ask, watching her work. She shrugs. I think disease doesn't need gods to explain it. It just needs bodies. That's surprisingly practical. I live above a cloth shop in the most crowded city in the world, she says dryly. Practicality keeps you alive. She approaches with a cup of something steaming. Drink this. Willow bark, honey, and a few other things. It won't cure you, but it might help with the fever. The drink is bitter, despite the honey, but you force it down. Thank you. Livia nods, then dips a cloth in a bowl of water and begins to sponge your face. The cool water feels incredible against your burning skin. They say Emperor Verus has it, she says after a moment. The plague. That gets your attention. Lucius Verus, co-emperor with Marcus Aurelius, a military man respected by the legions. Will he survive, you ask? Livia's hands pause briefly. They say it doesn't look good. Best physicians in Rome are with him, but she trails off. If the emperor can die from this, with all his wealth and the finest medical care available, what chance do you have? As if reading your thoughts, Livia says, but many are surviving, more than half. The odds are in your favour. Not great odds, but better than you faced in some battles. How bad is it, you ask? In the city? She's quiet for a moment, wringing out the cloth. Bad. The temples are full. The funeral pyres burn day and night. Some neighbourhoods are almost empty, people fleeing to the countryside, thinking they'll be safer there. Her voice turns bitter, as if the rich taking their sickness to their villas won't spread it further. And the emperor? What's he doing? Marcus Aurelius has ordered public graves for the poor, paid from the imperial treasury. He's trying to keep order. She sighs, but there's only so much anyone can do. She continues tending to you, applying a cooling salve to the pustules, helping you drink more water, even spoon-feeding you a rich broth she's brought that's infinitely better than the gruel the army provided. As she works, she tells you about the city, how it's changing under the shadow of the plague, markets half empty, temples overflowing, the Colosseum closed, gladiatorial games suspended, the rich retreating to their country estates, the poor dying in the streets. It's like the gods have cursed us, she says, though she'd earlier dismissed divine punishment. First war, now this. You want to offer some comfort, but what can you say? This is the reality of living through a pandemic in the ancient world. There are no vaccines, no antibiotics, just herbal remedies, prayer, and hoping your body is strong enough to fight it off. You should go, you tell her eventually. It's late, and being around me can't be good, no matter what you say about immunity. Livia hesitates, then nods. I'll come back tomorrow. Try to rest. After she leaves, you lie in the dark, listening to the muted sounds of nighttime Rome. Somewhere nearby, someone is sobbing. Somewhere else, a dog barks incessantly. The normal sounds of the greatest city in the world, now tinged with desperation. The fever rises again during the night, bringing more strange dreams. You're back in Mesopotamia, but the enemy soldiers have pustule-covered faces. You're in the Colosseum, but instead of gladiators, sick men fight each other while the crowd cheers. You're standing before Emperor Marcus Aurelius, trying to explain why you brought this plague back from the east, but no words come out. You wake gasping, your tunic soaked through with sweat. The pustules have spread, covering most of your body now. They itch maddeningly, but you know from watching others that scratching only makes it worse, leading to infected sores that leave deep scars. The dawn light filtering through your window shows a jar of fresh water by your bed. Livia must have come and gone while you were lost in fever dreams. The day passes in a blur of misery. Your commander Gaius shouts through the door that 10 more soldiers in your century have fallen ill. The barracks are being converted to a sick ward. The patrols are undermanned. The city is growing restless. Just don't die. He orders you as if it's a matter of discipline. That's an order, soldier. Yes, sir, you croak, though you're not sure he hears you. By evening, the fever has broken slightly, leaving you weak but more alert. The pustules have stopped spreading, which you hope is a good sign. You manage to keep down some water and a little bread. When Livia arrives, she seems pleased with your progress. The first 3 days are the worst, she tells you, changing the cloths she's laid over the worst of the pustules. If you make it through those, you'll likely recover. How do you know so much about this, you ask? I told you. I've been helping at the temple. You see patterns after a while. She works with quick, efficient movements, her hands gentle but sure. The very old and very young are hit hardest. Soldiers and labourers, strong men often recover. Often, you repeat. Not always. She meets your eyes. No, not always. There's something she's not telling you. You can see it in the tightness around her mouth, the way she won't quite meet your gaze. Livia, what is it? She sighs, sitting on the stool beside your cot. There's talk in the city, people saying the soldiers brought this back from the east, that it's your fault. Her voice drops. There have been incidents, attacks on legionaries who were walking alone. Great. As if being sick wasn't bad enough, now you have to worry about angry mobs. Are you safe, you ask? Coming here, to the barracks? She gives you a small smile. I can take care of myself, and most people know my father and I have been helping the sick. They leave us alone. You nod, but make a mental note to be careful when you recover. If you recover. Rest, Livia says, standing. I'll come again tomorrow. She does come the next day, and the next. Each day you grow a little stronger. The pustules begin to dry out and scab over. The fever recedes. Your appetite returns. On the 5th day, you're able to stand without the room spinning. On the 6th, you can walk the length of your small quarters without needing to rest. Livia brings news from the city. The plague continues to spread, claiming more lives each day. Emperor Verus is dead, leaving Marcus Aurelius as sole emperor. The funeral pyres burn without ceasing. They say 1/4 of those who catch it die, she tells you on her 7th visit. You're lucky. Lucky? You don't feel lucky, covered in scabs that will likely leave scars, weak as a newborn colt, but you're alive, which is more than can be said for many. On the 10th day, Gaius declares you fit for light duty. The pustules have mostly healed, leaving angry red marks that will fade to scars over time. Your strength is returning, though you tire easily. Report to the granary, he tells you through the door, still unwilling to face you directly. Guard duty, minimal contact with others. You understand the caution. Even though you've recovered, people will be wary of you for a while, and truthfully, no one is sure if those who've had the plague can spread it to others even after they seem well. The Rome you step into after 10 days of isolation is changed. The streets are less crowded, many shops are closed, their owners dead or fled. The usual bustle of the world's greatest city is muted, as if everyone is holding their breath, waiting to see who will be struck down next. At the granary, you take up your post alongside 2 other soldiers who've also recovered from the plague. Your orders are simple: prevent looting. With food supplies disrupted by the pandemic, the granaries have become prime targets. Heard about the riots in the Suburra? One of the soldiers asks you during the long, quiet watch. You shake your head. Food ran out, or the merchants were charging too much. Depends who you ask. He rubs at the scars on his arms, a habit you've noticed among those who've survived the pustules. Mob tore apart 3 shops before the urban cohort got there. The other soldier spits. Going to get worse before it gets better. Always does with these things. You think of Athens, of the social breakdown Thucydides described during that long-ago plague. Some things never change, it seems, whether in Greece or Rome, whether 430 BCE or 165 CE. As darkness falls, you notice a familiar figure approaching the granary, Livia carrying her basket. You shouldn't be out after dark, you tell her when she reaches you. It's not safe. I know, she says simply, but I promised my father I'd bring this to the temple. She indicates her basket. Medicines. He's been making them for the sick. I'll walk you there, you decide, looking to your fellow guards. Cover for me? They nod, understanding in their plague-scarred faces. The streets are eerily quiet as you and Livia make your way toward the temple. Few people are out, and those who are hurry along with heads down, avoiding contact. The only crowds are around taverns, where men drink as if there's no tomorrow, which, for some of them, there may not be. It's changing everything, Livia says quietly as you walk. This plague, the way people think, the way they behave. Some have given up all restraint, spending everything they have on pleasure, figuring they'll be dead soon anyway. Others have become fanatically religious, seeing punishment from the gods everywhere. And you ask? She considers this. I think I've become more practical, more focused on what matters, helping where I can, being with those I care about. She glances at you. Not wasting time. There's something in her look that warms you despite the cool evening air. You reach the temple, where activity continues despite the late hour. Priests and helpers move among pallets of the sick, offering comfort if not cure. The air is heavy with incense, partly for religious purposes, partly to mask the smell of sickness. Livia delivers her basket to a grateful priestess, then turns to you. Walk me home? The journey to her father's shop takes you through the heart of Rome. Even in the grip of plague, the eternal city maintains a certain grandeur. The moonlight gleams on marble buildings, on fountains still flowing, on monuments to emperors and gods who've watched over countless crises. Outside the cloth shop, Livia pauses. Would you like to come in? My father would be glad to see you recovered. You hesitate. It feels strange to be engaging in something as normal as a social visit when the world seems to be falling apart around you. But maybe that's exactly what's needed, small moments of normalcy, of connection in the midst of chaos. I'd like that, you say. Inside, the shop is warm and smells of wool and dye. Livia's father, a stooped man with clever eyes, greets you warmly, examining your healing pustules with professional interest. Good, good, he says, nodding. They're drying clean, no infection. You'll have some scars, but nothing too disfiguring. Father, Livia chides, but you laugh. Honesty is appreciated, you tell him. I've seen men whose pustules festered. I'm lucky. There's that word again. Lucky? Are you? Really? Or is it just the randomness of disease, striking down some while sparing others for no discernible reason? Over a simple meal of bread, cheese, and watered wine, Livia and her father talk about the city, about customers who haven't been seen for weeks, about the cloth trade slowing as people focus on necessities rather than new tunics. It will pass, her father says with the confidence of age. All things do. Rome has survived worse. Has it, though? You wonder. This plague is like nothing in living memory. It's reshaping the empire in ways that may not be fully understood for generations. When you eventually rise to leave, Livia walks you to the door. Will you come again? She asks. If you'd like, you say, suddenly unsure. I would. She reaches up, her fingers lightly tracing one of the healing pustules on your cheek. We survivors should stick together. As you walk back to the barracks, Rome sleeps uneasily around you. The plague continues its invisible march through the city, through the empire. No one knows how many will die before it's done. Estimates already run into the millions across all provinces. But life continues, as it always does. People adapt, survive, find moments of connection amid disaster. Back in your quarters, you examine your face in the polished metal mirror. The pustules are healing, but they'll leave scars, battle scars of a different kind. You think of Livia, of her steady hands and practical mind, of the way she looked at you, not with disgust at your disease-marked skin, but with recognition. Fellow survivor, perhaps there is some luck in this after all. As you drift off to sleep, you wonder what happens next, not just for you, for Livia, for plague-stricken Rome, but for humanity facing this invisible enemy that respects no borders, no wealth, no status. The plague will eventually recede, as all pandemics do, but it will leave a changed world in its wake. A world where perhaps some lessons have been learned, where perhaps next time people will be better prepared. Though as you slip into dreams, a part of you doubts it. Some patterns seem to repeat throughout history, as inevitable as the seasons, and you wonder what the next great pandemic will bring. Once again, the world shifts around you. Rome fades away like morning mist. And for a moment, you're nowhere and no when. Then reality snaps back into focus. Your name is Demetrios. You're a merchant in Constantinople, the jewel of the Byzantine Empire. The year is 541 CE. You wake to the sound of gulls and distant shouting from the harbour. Your bedroom window faces east, and golden morning light spills across your silk coverlet. Not the rough wool blankets of Rome or scratchy straw pallets of Athens. You've done well for yourself in this life. But something's wrong. You can feel it immediately. Your body aches in a way that has nothing to do with age or exertion. Your head pounds. There's a strange swelling under your arm that wasn't there yesterday, tender to the touch. No, you whisper. Please, not this. The rumours have been spreading faster than the disease itself. A terrible plague, they say, moving along the trade routes from Egypt. Some claim it started in Ethiopia, others say India or China. Wherever it began, it's here now, in the greatest city in the world, in your home. You sit up, wincing at the pain. The swelling under your armour bubo, they're calling it, throbs with every heartbeat. You've heard what comes next. Fever, delirium, death for most. A knock at your bedroom door makes you jump. Master, it's Zoe, your housekeeper. Are you awake? There's a messenger from the docks. The docks, your shipment of silk from Damascus. Under normal circumstances, this would be your primary concern, making sure the goods arrived safely, checking the quality, negotiating storage until you can arrange sales to the city's wealthiest families. But nothing is normal anymore. Tell him I'm unwell, you call back, your voice surprisingly steady. The silk can wait. A pause. Master, he says it's urgent. Something about inspection orders from the Emperor. Emperor Justinian, even in your feverish state, the name commands attention. The most powerful man in the known world, whose vision of restoring the glory of the old Roman Empire has driven decades of conquest and construction. Fine, you sigh. Give me a moment. Dressing is an ordeal. Every movement sends pain shooting through your body. You choose a tunic with full sleeves, hoping to hide the swelling in your armpit. No need to cause a panic, yet. The messenger is waiting in your courtyard, a skinny boy who keeps shifting from foot to foot. When he sees you, he takes an instinctive step back. Do you look that bad already? What news? You ask, keeping your distance. No sense exposing him if you truly have the plague. Emperor's orders, sir, the boy says, extending a sealed parchment at arm's length. All shipments from Egypt and Syria to be held at the docks for inspection. They're checking for signs of disease. Too late for that, you think grimly, taking the parchment. The seal is imperial, genuine. Who's doing the inspections, you ask? If it's some corrupt official using this as an excuse to demand bribes, you'll need to make arrangements. Doctors, sir, sent by the emperor himself. The boy's eyes dart nervously. They say 10,000 are dying each day in Egypt. 10,000. Each day. The number is too vast to comprehend. Thank you, you say, pressing a small coin into the boy's hand. Go quickly now. He doesn't need to be told twice, practically running from your house. Alone again, you slump against a column in your courtyard. The fever is getting worse. The morning sun, usually so welcome, feels like an assault, and the bubo under your arm pulses with hot, insistent pain. Master, Zoe again, hovering in the doorway. Should I send for a physician? You consider this. Physicians are already in short supply with so many falling ill, and what can they do, really? The treatments you've heard about lancing the buboes, bloodletting, strange herbal concoctions seem as likely to kill as to cure, but the alternative is waiting to die. Yes, you decide. Send for one. And Zoe, don't come near me. Tell the others to stay away too. Her eyes widen as she understands. The plague? You have it? I don't know for certain, but Yes, I think so. She makes the sign of the cross, backing away. I'll send for the physician right away. Left alone, you make your way to your private courtyard garden. If these are to be your last days, you want to spend them looking at beauty, not trapped in a sick room. The garden is your pride, a small oasis of tranquility in the bustling heart of Constantinople. A fountain bubbles at its centre, surrounded by carefully tended roses, jasmine, and pomegranate trees. You sink onto a marble bench, the cool stone soothing against your burning skin. From here, you can see a sliver of the city beyond your walls. Constantinople, the new Rome, with its magnificent churches and palaces, its bustling markets and crowded streets, the greatest city in Christendom, home to nearly 500,000 souls. How many of those souls will survive this plague? Your mind wanders to your warehouse near the docks, filled with treasures from across the known world, silks from Damascus and beyond, spices from India, ivory from Africa, papers from Egypt, your entire life's work measured in goods and gold. What good is any of it if the plague takes you? A soft moan escapes your lips as a wave of pain washes over you. The bubo is growing larger. You can feel it, and now there's another one forming on your neck. Your skin burns. Your thoughts grow fuzzy around the edges. Master Demetrios? You look up, blinking against the sunlight. A man stands at the garden entrance tool, bearded, wearing the dark robes of a physician. The plague, you say simply. No point in pretenses. He nods, approaching cautiously. May I examine you? What's the point? Bitterness creeps into your voice. Can you cure it? No, he admits, and you appreciate his honesty. But I can perhaps ease your suffering, and not everyone dies. Not everyone. Small comfort, but comfort nonetheless. You allow him to examine you, wincing as his fingers probe the swollen buboes. His face remains impassive, professional, but you can read the grim diagnosis in his eyes. How long? You ask when he's finished. Impossible to say. Some succumb within days, others linger for weeks. He opens his satchel, removing various vials and packets. I can give you something for the pain and fever, and I recommend lancing the buboes. The pus inside is believed to contain the poison. You've heard of this treatment, cutting open the swellings to drain the infected fluid. It sounds barbaric, but then again, so is dying of plague. Do it, you say, closing your eyes. What follows is among the most painful experiences of your life. The physician uses a small, sharp blade to slice open the buboes, one under your arm, the other on your neck. The pain is blinding, white-hot, but mercifully brief. Then comes the draining, foul-smelling pus that he captures in a cloth. Burn that, you gasp when it's over. Of course. He bandages your wounds, then prepares a draught of various herbs steeped in wine. Drink this. It will help with the fever and pain. The concoction tastes vile, bitter herbs barely masked by the sweetness of the wine, but you drink it all, desperate for any relief. Rest now, the physician says, packing his implements. Have your servants bring cool water for compresses, and pray. Will you come again tomorrow? You ask, suddenly afraid of facing this alone. He hesitates, then nods. If I'm able. If he's not taken by the plague himself, he means. After he leaves, you remain in the garden until the shadows grow long. The medicine has dulled the worst of the pain, but the fever still rages. Your thoughts drift, memories swirling like leaves in a stream. You think of your childhood in a small village outside Antioch, your father's farm, the day you decided to seek your fortune in the great city of Constantinople, your first successful trading venture, the slow accumulation of wealth and status, the wife you lost in childbirth 10 years ago, the son who's studying in Athens, thank God far from this plague-stricken city. Will you ever see him again? As evening approaches, Zoe cautiously enters the garden, keeping her distance. Master, there's news from the city. Tell me, you say, rousing yourself from your fevered daze. They say the emperor himself has fallen ill with the plague. That gets your attention. Justinian, the most powerful man in the world, struck down just like the poorest beggar in the streets. Has he died, you ask? Not yet, but the city is in chaos. People are fleeing, the markets are empty, and she hesitates. What is it? The bodies, master. There are too many to bury properly. They're using mass graves outside the walls, and some, her voice drops to a whisper, some are simply being thrown into the sea. You close your eyes, imagining the horror of it. The magnificent civilized city of Constantinople reduced to disposing of its dead like so much garbage. You should leave, you tell Zoe. Take what wages are owed to you and go. Get out of the city while you can. She shakes her head stubbornly. My place is here. Besides, where would I go? Plague is everywhere. Is it? You wonder just how far this pestilence has spread. Throughout the empire? Certainly. But beyond? Is any place safe? Night falls, bringing no relief from the fever. You drift in and out of consciousness, your dreams filled with nightmarish visions, streets piled with corpses, the sea turned red with blood, the great dome of Hagia Sophia cracking open like an egg to reveal a swarm of diseased rats. You wake, gasping, drenched in sweat, to find it's morning again. Somehow, you've survived the night. Zoe brings bread and watered wine, which you can barely touch. The physician, you ask. I sent for him, but she doesn't need to finish. Either he's tending to other patients, or he's succumbed himself. You nod, unsurprised. Help me to the roof, you say. I want to see the city. Your house, like many belonging to wealthy merchants, has a flat roof used as an additional living space in pleasant weather. Zoe helps you climb the stairs, supporting your weight as your legs threaten to give out. The view from the roof steals what little breath you have left. Constantinople, the bustling, vibrant heart of the empire, looks like a city of the dead. The streets, normally teeming with life, are nearly empty. No merchants hawking their wares, no children playing, no animals being led to market, only the occasional cart rumbling past, piled high with shrouded forms. In the distance, beyond the city walls, you can see the smoke from funeral pyres, so many that they form a hazy pall over the horizon. They're burning the bodies now, Zoe says quietly. There's no room left to bury them. You think of the 10,000 dying each day in Egypt, according to the messenger boy. Is it the same here? How many have already been lost? How many more will follow? A bout of dizziness forces you to sit. The buboes, though drained yesterday, have refilled overnight, painful and hot. The fever comes and goes in waves, leaving you alternately burning and shivering. Help me back down, you say after a while. I need to write to my son. In your study, you struggle to hold a pen steady enough to write. The words swim before your eyes, but you persist. Your son should know what's happened, should know how much you love him, should be prepared if the plague reaches Athens too. You seal the letter with your merchant's mark, pressing the signet ring into hot wax. Send this with the next ship to Athens, you tell Zoe. Pay whatever it costs. She takes the letter, her face solemn. I will, master. The day passes slowly. Your condition neither improves nor dramatically worsens. The physician doesn't come. From your garden you can hear the changing sounds of the cityless traffic. Fewer voices, but more bells tolling for the dead. By evening, a new symptom appears. Your skin, particularly on your extremities, begins to darken. First a reddish hue, then purplish black, starting at your fingers and toes. Gangrene, the final stage of the plague according to the rumours. "I'm dying," you tell Zoe when she brings your evening meal, which again goes untouched. She doesn't contradict you, which is answer enough. "Will you stay?" you ask. "Until the end?" "Of course, master." Her eyes glisten with unshed tears. "Where else would I go? Where else indeed? The plague is everywhere. The known world is being unmade." Night falls again. Your fever spikes, bringing with it vivid hallucinations. The walls of your bedroom seem to breathe. Shadows take on monstrous forms. You see your dead wife sitting at the foot of your bed, beckoning. But morning comes again, and somehow you're still alive. And not only alive, but different. The fever has broken. The buboes, while still present, no longer throb with each heartbeat. The blackness in your extremities has stopped spreading. When Zoe comes to check on you, her eyes widen in surprise. "Master, you look better. I feel better," you say, marveling at it. "Not well, but better. Could it be? Are you one of the lucky ones who survive?" The physician finally returns that afternoon, looking haggard and much older than he did 2 days ago. He examines you with evident surprise. "The buboes are shrinking," he says, "and your fever has broken. It appears you may recover. Is that common?" you ask. He shakes his head. "No, most who reach the stage of blackening skin do not survive. You are fortunate, fortunate." The word seems inadequate for what feels like a miracle. "What of the city?" you ask. "The emperor? Justinian lives," the physician says. "Like you, he seems to be recovering. But many, many others have not been so fortunate. Perhaps 1/3 of the city has perished already." 1/3. In a city of 500,000, that means over 150,000 dead. The number is too vast to comprehend. Will it end, you ask? This plague? The physician sighs, suddenly looking every year of his age. All things end eventually, but this may take years to burn itself out, and it may return in waves. He's right, though neither of you can know it yet. This plague, later to be called the Plague of Justinian, will last for over 2 centuries, coming and going in deadly waves. It will kill an estimated 100 million people across the Byzantine Empire, Europe, and beyond. It will help prevent Justinian's dream of reconquering and reuniting the old Roman Empire. It will reshape the political and religious landscape of the known world. But for now, all you know is that you've been granted a reprieve, a second chance at life when so many others have perished. In the days that follow, your strength slowly returns. The buboes shrink and eventually disappear, leaving only scars. The blackness in your extremities fades, though your fingertips and toes remain slightly discolored, a permanent reminder of how close you came to death. A week after your fever breaks, you're strong enough to visit your warehouse near the docks. The streets of Constantinople are still unnaturally quiet. Many shops remain closed, their owners dead or fled. Those people you do see hurry about their business, avoiding close contact, many with cloths tied over their faces. At the harbour, the usual bustle of commerce has slowed to a trickle. Ships sit idle, either quarantined or unable to find enough healthy crew to sail. Your warehouse, when you reach it, is untouched, your silks and spices still safely stored. But to what end? Who remains to buy such luxuries in a city ravaged by plague? As you're inspecting your inventory, a commotion outside draws your attention. A ship is arriving, its crew calling out as they dock. Not a merchant vessel by the look of it, but an imperial dispatch boat. You step outside in time to see a court official disembark surrounded by guards. He unrolls a scroll and begins to read in a loud voice. By order of Emperor Justinian, recovered by the grace of God from the pestilence that afflicts our empire, all citizens are commanded to pray for deliverance. Churches will remain open day and night for this purpose. Those who have recovered from the plague are specially enjoined to give thanks for their salvation and to assist the afflicted where possible, as they may do so without fear of reinfection. Interesting. The emperor believes those who've recovered are immune to the plague. Is he right? You have no idea, but the thought is comforting. The official continues. Furthermore, to prevent the spread of disease, all bodies must be properly buried or burned. The dumping of corpses is forbidden on pain of death. Ships arriving from foreign ports must remain quarantined for 40 days before any person or cargo may enter the city. 40 days of quarantine that will essentially halt trade for the duration of the plague. Your business, your livelihood is effectively over, at least for now, but you're alive, unlike hundreds of thousands, millions of others across the empire. As you walk back home through the plague-ravaged city, you think about what comes next, not just for you, but for Constantinople, for the Byzantine Empire, for the world. This plague has changed everything. The dead are beyond counting. The survivors will carry the scars, visible and invisible, for the rest of their lives. Yet humanity continues. The plague will eventually recede. Cities will rebuild. Trade will resume. Life, in some form, will go on. And centuries later, people will look back on this time on your time and wonder what it was like to live through one of history's deadliest pandemics. They'll read accounts written by scholars and church officials. They'll study the economic and political aftermath. They'll note the plague's role in shaping the medieval world that followed. But they won't really know what it felt like. The terror of waking with a swollen lymph node, the pain of the buboes being lanced, the fever dreams and hallucinations, the sight of carts piled high with bodies, the smell of mass funeral pyres burning day and night, the grief of losing friends, family, neighbours, the strange guilty relief of survival when so many others perished. These things can't be fully captured in historical records. They can only be lived. As you reach your home, the sun is setting over Constantinople, casting a golden glow over the city of the dead and the dying, but also the city of the living, the survivors, those who, like you, will carry the memory of this plague forward into whatever world emerges from its shadow. And you wonder as the light fades what the next great pandemic will bring, and who will live to tell its story. Once more, reality shifts around you. Constantinople dissolves like fog in morning sun. For a suspended moment, you exist nowhere and nowhen. Then the world re-solidifies. Your name is Thomas. You're a baker's son in the thriving port city of Bristol, England. The year is 1348. You wake to the sound of church bells. Not the regular morning call to prayer, but the frantic, irregular tolling that signals death. Lots of death. The thin straw mattress crinkles beneath you as you sit up. Your small room above your father's bakery is cold October chill seeping through the shuttered window. You pull your woolen blanket tighter, not wanting to face what waits outside. The plague arrived in Bristol 3 weeks ago on a merchant ship from Bordeaux. At first, just rumours. A sailor found dead in his bunk, covered in strange swellings. Then another. Then people in the streets near the harbour. Now it's everywhere. Thomas. Your father's voice from below, strained with exhaustion. The ovens need tending. Life goes on, even when death is all around. People still need bread, perhaps now more than ever. You dress quickly in simple woolen clothes, nothing like the silks of Constantinople or the fine tunics of Rome. The coarse fabric scratches against your skin as you splash water on your face from the basin by your bed. The water is ice cold, shocking you fully awake. Downstairs, the bakery is already warm from the ovens. Your father works the dough, his strong hands kneading with practiced motions. His face is haggard with dark circles under his eyes. Neither of you has slept well since the plague came. Mrs. Cooper died in the night, he says without preamble, and the Chandlers' entire family is sick. Mrs. Cooper, your neighbour for all your 17 years, the woman who used to sneak you sweet cakes when you were small. God rest her soul, you murmur, crossing yourself. Your father nods grimly. Take the fire poker and stoke the ovens. Then we need more water from the well. The well in the town square where people gather, where the disease spreads. You try to hide your fear, but your father sees it. We can't hide forever, son, he says, more gently now. We need water to make bread. People need bread to live. Simple logic, impossible to argue with, but it doesn't calm the twisting in your gut. You take up the poker and work the bakery ovens, turning loaves so they brown evenly. The familiar task is soothing, almost normal, almost. When the morning batch is done, you take 2 wooden buckets and head for the town square. Bristol is a different place than it was a month ago. The narrow streets, usually bustling with traders, craftsmen and housewives going about their business, are eerily quiet. Those few people you do see hurry along with heads down, avoiding contact. Many carry posies of herbs, believing their fragrance will ward off disease. Others have cloths tied over their noses and mouths. What strikes you most is the doors, so many marked with large red crosses, the sign that plague has visited that household. Some doors are nailed shut from the outside, the occupants quarantined either to recover or die. The smell hits you next. Death has a smell, you've learned, sweet and rotten at once, like meat left too long in summer heat. It hangs over the city like an invisible fog. The town square is nearly deserted when you arrive. The well sits at its centre, as it has for 100 years. Usually, this would be a place of gossip and social life, with women drawing water while exchanging news, children playing nearby, men gathering to discuss business or politics. Now there's just an old man slumped against the stone well housing, his breath coming in ragged gasps. His neck is swollen on one side with a blackish lump the size of a hen's egg abubo, the unmistakable mark of the plague. You hesitate, buckets in hand. You need water. The man is clearly dying. What do? Don't worry, boy, the man croaks, seeing your hesitation. I won't touch the water. His awareness of his own contagion is somehow more heartbreaking than if he'd been delirious. Can I help you home, sir? You ask, though everything you've heard says to avoid the sick. He shakes his head weakly. No home, left, wife and daughters, all gone. His rheumy eyes fix on you. Just wanted to die, under the sky, not locked inside. You don't know what to say to that. What can anyone say? So you nod respectfully and go about your business, drawing water from the well. The rope feels rough against your palms as you lower and raise the bucket. Such an ordinary action in such extraordinary times. When both buckets are full, you look back at the old man. His eyes are closed now, his breathing shallow. He might already be dead. You should notify the death cart, but they're so overwhelmed they only come once a day now. I'm sorry, you whisper, though he can't hear you. Then you take your water and head back to the bakery. The streets seem even emptier on your return journey, or maybe you're just more aware of the absence. Where are the dogs that usually roam the city? The cats? Even the rats that infest the wharf district seem to have vanished. Someone said they're dying too. Animals struck down alongside their human neighbours, though not the fleas apparently. The fleas are thriving. A flash of movement catches your eye, a procession turning onto the main street. Your heart sinks as you recognise what it is. The flagellants have come to Bristol. You've heard of these zealotsmen who travel from town to town, whipping themselves bloody in a public display of penance. They believe the plague is God's punishment for mankind's sins and that their suffering might appease divine wrath. They march slowly down the street, bare-chested despite the October chill. Each man whips his own back with a scourge of knotted ropes, their skin already raw and bleeding from previous flagellations. They chant Latin prayers as they walk, their voices rising and falling in eerie unison. Townspeople emerge from houses to watch, keeping their distance but drawn by the spectacle. Some weep openly. Others fall to their knees in prayer. A few shout encouragement or join the chanting. You stand frozen, water buckets heavy in your hands as the procession passes. The flagellants' eyes are fevered with religious ecstasy or madness or both. Their backs are a mess of torn flesh and dried blood, fresh wounds weeping red onto the cobblestones. Is this what humanity has come to? Whipping ourselves in desperate hope of salvation? Back at the bakery, your father takes one look at your face and knows you've seen something disturbing. The flagellants, he guesses, taking one of the water buckets from you. You nod. Do you think it helps? The self-punishment? He sighs deeply, pouring water into the large mixing bowl. I think people will try anything when they're scared enough, even hurting themselves. What do you think it is? You ask, the question that's been on everyone's mind. The plague. Is it God's wrath? Bad air? Poison in the wells? Your father's hands still in the dough. I don't know, Thomas. No one does. But I do know that standing around wondering won't feed anyone. Hand me that salt. The day proceeds with the familiar rhythm of the bakery, mixing, kneading, shaping, baking. The physical labor keeps your mind occupied, away from darker thoughts. The heat of the ovens is welcome against the autumn chill. People come for bread, fewer than normal but still a steady trickle. They leave coins in a bowl of vinegar believed to cleanse the metal of contagion and take their loaves with murmured thanks. No one lingers to chat as they once did. The bakery, once a social hub of the neighbourhood, is now just a place of necessary business. As evening approaches, a new sound joins the death knell of church bells, the slow creak of wheels and the doleful call, "Bring out your dead." The death cart makes its rounds at dusk now, collecting the day's victims. You and your father close the shutters, trying to block out the sound, but it seeps through anyway. The rumble of wooden wheels on cobblestones, the thud of bodies being loaded, the occasional sob of a survivor. Will it ever end? You ask quietly as you sit down to a simple supper of bread, cheese, and small beer. Your father doesn't answer immediately. When he does, his voice is tired but steady. It will. All things do. The question is, who will be left to see it? That night, sleep eludes you. The death cart continues its rounds well past midnight. Somewhere nearby, a woman wails in grief or pain. The flagellants have set up in the town square, their chanting carrying through the night air. When you finally do drift off, your dreams are troubled. You're on a ship watching rats pour from the hold, their bodies teeming with fleas. You're in a field of buboes that burst when touched, releasing not pus but thousands of tiny black spiders. You're walking through Bristol, but everyone you pass turns to look at you with blackened, necrotic faces. You wake with a gasp, sweat-soaked despite the cool air. Dawn is breaking, pale light filtering through the shutters. Another day in plague-stricken Bristol begins. But something's wrong, different. Your body aches in a way that has nothing to do with yesterday's labour. Your head pounds. And there's a tenderness in your groin that sends a spike of pure terror through your heart. No. Please, God, no. With trembling fingers you reach down, feeling through your linen nightclothes. There, in the crease where thigh meets body, an unmistakable swelling, a bubo, the plague mark. You've been struck. For a moment, all you can do is lie there, frozen in horror. The plague. You have the plague. The disease that's been emptying Bristol house by house. The killer that takes 2 out of every 3 it touches. "Father," you try to call, but your voice comes out as a croak. You clear your throat and try again, louder. "Father." Footsteps on the stairs. Then your father's concerned face appears in the doorway. "Thomas, what is it?" You can't say it, can't make the words come. Instead, you gesture weakly toward your groin. Understanding dawns in his eyes, followed quickly by a grief so profound it physically ages him. He crosses himself slowly. "Are you certain?" You nod, tears welling. "I'm sorry," you whisper, "though you've done nothing wrong, nothing to cause this. But that's the thing about the plague. It doesn't care if you're good or evil, pious or sinful, young or old. It takes indiscriminately, a scythe cutting through humanity without pattern or purpose." Your father moves to your bedside, reaching for your hand, but you pull away. "Don't," you warn. "You'll catch it too." "I've been living in the same house as you, breathing the same air, eating the same food," he says gently. "If I'm to catch it, the deed is likely done." Still, he respects your wish, not touching you. "What can I do? Shall I fetch a physician?" Physicians, with their bird-like masks filled with herbs, their useless remedies, their bloodletting and purges that seem kill as often as they cure, and they charge a fortune, more than a baker can afford. "No," you say. "Just water, please. I'm so thirsty." He brings water and a cool cloth for your forehead. The fever is rising fast, making the room swim before your eyes. The bubo in your groin throbs with every heartbeat, a hot coal nestled against your flesh. "We should tell Father Michael," your father says, naming the parish priest. "He'll want to give last rites, just in case." Just in case. A gentle way of saying, "before you die." You nod weakly. Last rites seem like a good idea now, with death looming so close you can practically feel its breath. Your father leaves to fetch the priest, and you're alone with your pain and fear. Outside, the sounds of Bristol continued, diminished but persistent. The death bells, the occasional cart rumbling past, a dog barking, proof that some animals still live. Your mind wanders, the fever making your thoughts loop and tangle. You think of the old man by the well, waiting to die under the open sky. You think of Mrs. Cooper, who used to give you sweet cakes. You think of the flagellants whipping their own flesh in desperate hope of salvation. And you think, oddly, of all the others throughout history who faced this moment, the terror of recognizing the plague's mark on your own body, the knowledge of what likely comes next, the plague in Athens, in Rome, in Constantinople, and now here, in Bristol, in you. Time passes strangely when you're sick. It might be minutes or hours before your father returns with Father Michael. The priest is young, one of the few clerics who haven't fled the city or succumbed themselves. His face is gaunt with exhaustion. How many deathbeds has he attended these past weeks? "Thomas," he greets you, his voice gentle. "Your father tells me you're unwell." An understatement if ever there was one. You try to smile, but it feels more like a grimace. "The plague, Father." He nods gravely. "I'll hear your confession, if you wish." What sins does a 17-year-old baker's son have to confess? You've stolen food when hungry. You've had impure thoughts about the tanner's daughter. You've taken the Lord's name in vain. Small things, petty things, do they matter now with death at your door? But you confess anyway, the familiar ritual bringing a strange comfort. Father Michael listens, absolves, then administers last rites, the sacrament reserved for the dying. The holy oil feels cool against your fevered skin as he makes the sign of the cross on your forehead. "May God, in his mercy, receive your soul," Father Michael concludes, his voice solemn but kind. "Thank you, Father," you whisper. After the priest leaves, your father sits with you. He tries to get you to drink more water, to eat a little bread soaked in milk, but your throat is closing up, making swallowing difficult. The bubo has grown larger, more painful, and now you've discovered others, under your arm, on your neck. Your skin burns, but you can't stop shivering. Tell me a story, you ask suddenly, childlike in your illness. Like when I was small. Your father looks surprised, then sad, then resolute. Of course, he says, settling more comfortably on the stool beside your bed. Have I ever told you about how your grandfather came to Bristol? He hasn't, or if he has, you don't remember. You shake your head slightly. He was a French baker from a little village near Paris, your father begins. He came here during the troubles with King John, looking for a fresh start. The story washes over you, your father's familiar voice a comfort, even as the plague works its way deeper into your body. You drift in and out, catching fragments your grandfather's journey across the Channel, his struggle to establish himself in a foreign city, his marriage to your English grandmother. Night falls again. Your father lights a single candle, its flame casting long shadows across the small room. He's still talking, still telling family stories, though his voice has grown hoarse with the effort. The fever is so high now that the entire room seems to ripple and distort. The pain from the buboes is excruciating, like being stabbed with hot pokers from the inside. Your breathing comes in shallow gasps. This is it, you realise. You're dying, like Mrs. Cooper, like the old man at the well, like thousands across Bristol, across England, across Europe. Father, you manage to whisper. He leans closer. I'm here, Thomas. I'm afraid. His face crumples, a lifetime of stoic strength giving way to raw grief. I know, son, I know, but you're not alone. I'm right here with you. He takes your hand then, despite the risk. His palm is rough from years of labour, warm against your increasingly cold skin. Tell mother but you can't finish the thought. Your mother, dead in childbirth with what would have been your sister, is she waiting for you, somewhere beyond? She knows, your father says softly. She's always known. The room is growing dimmer, though the candle still burns. Your father's face blurs and doubles in your vision. The pain is receding now, replaced by a strange numbness that spreads from your extremities inward. Is this what death feels like? This gentle letting go? Your father is still talking, still holding your hand, but his words are indistinct now, underwater sounds that don't quite reach you. You try to squeeze his fingers to let him know you hear him, but you're not sure if your body responds. The darkness at the edges of your vision grows, encroaching on the candlelight. Your last thought is of bread, oddly enough. The simple comfort of your father's bakery, the smell of it, yeasty and warm, the ritual of making it, day after day, life-sustaining. Then nothing. The plague that took you the Black Death will go on to kill somewhere between 30% and 60% of Europe's population. Approximately 50 million people will die across Asia, Africa, and Europe. Entire villages will be wiped out. Cities will be transformed. The social, economic, and religious fabric of medieval society will be torn apart and rewoven in the aftermath. But statistics can't capture what it was like to live through it, to wake with a bubo and know what it means, to watch your neighbours, friends, family sicken and die, to wonder if you'll be next, to face the most fundamental human fear, death multiplied across an entire continent. The Black Death will eventually recede, as all pandemics do, but it will return again and again in smaller outbreaks across Europe for centuries to come, and its impact will be felt long after the last victim is buried in art, in literature, in religion, in the very structure of society. This is what it meant to live and die during history's most notorious pandemic. Not just numbers in a history book, but individual lives, individual fears, individual losses. A baker's son in Bristol, a merchant in Constantinople, a soldier in Rome, a citizen in Athens. Each with their own story, each facing the same enemy, each part of the long human struggle against disease that continues to this day. The darkness recedes, your consciousness drifts, untethered from time and place. Then slowly you begin to solidify into a new existence. Your name is Citlali. You're a young healer's apprentice in Tenochtitlan, what the Spanish now call Mexico City. The year is 1545. You wake to the sound of coughing, harsh, wet coughing that makes your chest hurt just hearing it. Your mother in the next room of your small adobe home. The thin reed mat beneath you crackles as you sit up. Dawn light filters through the doorway, covered only by a woven cloth. The air already feels hot and too thick to breathe properly. Your mother has been sick for 3 days now, not with the ordinary fevers that come and go, but with something worse, something that's been spreading through the city for weeks. The Spanish call it the Great Pestilence. Your people have another name for it, Cocolistli, the Destroyer. Water, your mother calls weakly. Citlali, water. You grab the clay jar beside your sleeping mat and hurry to her side. She looks terrible. Her normally rich brown skin has a greyish cast. Her eyes are bloodshot, her lips cracked, and there's blood dried around her nose, staining the corner of her mouth. "Here, mother," you say, helping her sit up to drink. She manages a few sips before a coughing fit takes her. More blood spatters the thin blanket covering her. Your heart clenches with fear. You've seen this before, working alongside your grandmother, the village healer, the high fever that won't break, the bleeding from nose and mouth, the terrible headaches and stomach pains. Few survive once the bleeding starts. "I need to fetch grandmother," you tell her, trying to keep your voice steady. "She'll know what herbs to use." Your mother's fingers catch your wrist, surprisingly strong for someone so sick. "No," she whispers, "too dangerous. The sickness, it's everywhere." She's right, and you know it. The disease is ravaging Tenochtitlan and the surrounding areas. People are dying by the hundreds, maybe thousands. No one knows exactly. There are too many bodies to count properly. "I'll be careful," you promise. "We need her remedies." Your mother's hand falls away, too weak to argue further. You place a fresh cloth soaked in cool water on her forehead, then prepare to go out. Your home sits on the outskirts of what was once the great Aztec capital. 24 years ago, the Spanish conquistadors destroyed much of the old city in their war against your people. You weren't born then, but you've heard the stories of how the magnificent temples were torn down, the canals filled in, the old ways suppressed. Now it's a strange hybrid place, Spanish colonial buildings rising alongside traditional homes, Catholic churches built with stones taken from Aztec temples. Two worlds uneasily coexisting and now being ravaged equally by this new plague. Outside, the morning is unnaturally quiet. Normally, the streets would be filling with people heading to the markets, to work in the fields, to labour on the Spaniards' endless construction projects. Now, only a few desperate souls move about, keeping their distance from each other. You pull your cotton cloak tighter around you, though the day is warm, not for protection from the weather, but from the disease that seems to hang in the very air. Your grandmother lives or lived on the other side of the district, about a half-hour walk. You haven't seen her in over a week, not since the sickness really took hold in your neighbourhood. Is she still alive, still helping others with her traditional medicines, or has Cocolistli claimed her too? The streets become more horrifying the further you walk. Outside some homes, bodies wrapped in simple cloths lie awaiting collection. No one comes to collect them anymore. There aren't enough healthy people left to keep up with the dead. A man sits in the dirt outside his home, rocking back and forth, keening quietly. His hands and tunic are stained with blood, his own or someone else's, you can't tell. You give him a wide berth, not out of callousness, but necessity. You can't help him. You can barely help your own mother. As you turn onto a wider street, you encounter a small procession of Spanish priests. They walk slowly, swinging censers that release clouds of heavy incense. One carries a cross held high, while another reads prayers from a leather-bound book. They're followed by a cart piled with bodies. The Spanish have their own methods for fighting the pestilence: prayers, processions, confession of sins. They believe the disease is God's punishment for wickedness. Some even say it's specifically targeting the indigenous people for clinging to their old beliefs. But you've seen plenty of Spanish colonists struck down too. The disease doesn't seem to care what gods anyone worships. You slip down a side street to avoid the procession. The Spanish have been allowing your grandmother to continue her healing work pragmatism, winning out over religious fervour in the face of so much death, but it's still better to avoid attention. When you finally reach your grandmother's small home, your heart sinks. The door stands open, never a good sign. You approach cautiously, calling out, "Grandmother, it's Kitlali." No answer. The single room inside is dim after the bright morning sun. It takes a moment for your eyes to adjust. When they do, you see her, your grandmother, the respected healer, lying motionless on her sleeping mat. "No," you whisper, rushing to her side. "Grandmother, please." Her skin is cool to the touch. She's been dead for at least a day. The telltale signs of coccolistly are their dried blood around her nose and mouth, the strange mottled discoloration of her skin. Even the healer couldn't heal herself. Grief hits you like a physical blow, buckling your knees. You sink to the ground beside her body, tears streaming down your face. Not just personal loss, though that's devastating enough, but the larger implications. Your grandmother was one of the few who knew the old remedies, the traditional medicines. She was teaching you, yes, but your training was far from complete. Without her, how many more will die? You allow yourself only a few minutes of grief. Your mother still needs you, still needs medicine. Wiping your tears, you look around the one-room home. Clay pots line the walls, each containing different herbs, roots and powders. Bundles of dried plants hang from the ceiling. Your grandmother's healing tools, obsidian blades for bloodletting, bone needles for removing splinters, smooth stones for massage are neatly arranged on a woven mat. A lifetime of knowledge, sitting unused while people die outside. You begin gathering what you need for your mother's symptoms, herbs for fever, to ease coughing, to slow bleeding. You work quickly but carefully, hearing your grandmother's voice in your memory. Too much willow bark causes stomach pain. Too little does nothing. The right amount eases fever. Medicine is balance. Sitlali. As you work, a shadow falls across the doorway. You turn, startled. A Spanish man stands there, not a soldier or priest, but one of their doctors. You recognize him vaguely. He's spoken with your grandmother before, curious about native remedies. "She's dead then," he says, his accent making the Nahuatl words sound strange. "I feared as much when she didn't come to the hospital yesterday." You nod, not trusting your voice. He crosses himself. "God rest her soul. She helped many, even if her methods were..." He trails off, perhaps remembering he's speaking to her granddaughter. "What do you want?" you ask, more sharply than intended. "The same as you, I imagine. Medicines." He gestures to the pots and bundles. "This sickness, Our European remedies aren't working. Bloodletting, purging, prayer nothing stops it. These won't stop it either, you say bitterly, holding up the bundle of herbs you've collected. They only ease the suffering. Even that would be something, he says quietly. At the hospital we have nothing left to offer but comfort. The hospital, a concept the Spanish brought with them, a place where the sick are gathered together, ostensibly for better care. Your grandmother thought it insanity, putting the ill side by side, sharing the same air, the same water. Take what you need, you say, turning back to your task. I have to return to my mother. She's ill? He asks. You nod, not looking at him. Bring her to the hospital. We can... No. Your voice is firm. She stays home with me. He doesn't argue further, just begins selecting herbs and roots from your grandmother's stores. After a moment, he asks, do you know how to use these? Did she teach you? Some, you admit. Not everything. He hesitates, then says, perhaps we could share knowledge. What you know of these native remedies, what I know of European medicine. You almost laugh. Share knowledge? After all the Spanish have done destroying your temples, banning your religious practices, treating your people like children to be converted or savages to be enslaved? But then you think of your mother, burning with fever, of the man in the street, covered in blood and lost in grief, of how many more will die in the coming weeks. Maybe, you say, non-committally, for now I need to go. With your bundle of medicines secure, you prepare to leave. The Spanish doctor steps aside, then says, my name is Diego. I'll be at the hospital near the central square if you change your mind. You nod once, then hurry past him, anxious to return to your mother. The journey home seems longer, the streets even more deserted than before. The sun beats down mercilessly and you feel dizzy with grief, fear and hunger. You haven't eaten since yesterday. When you finally reach home, you call out, Mother, I'm back. I have medicine. The only answer is the buzzing of flies. No, 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 no. You rush inside, dropping your precious bundle of herbs. Your mother lies exactly as you left her, but her chest no longer rises and falls. Her eyes stare sightlessly at the ceiling. You're too late. The world seems to tilt and blur around you. Everyone gone father dead years ago in a Spanish silver mine. Grandmother taken by Cockalistly, and now mother too. At 16, you're completely alone in a world coming apart at the seams. You sink to the floor beside your mother's body, too shocked even for tears. The disease is so fast, so merciless. She had been talking to you just hours ago. How long you sit there, you don't know. The light shifts, shadows lengthening as the day wears on. You should do something. Prepare her body for burial, notify the death collectors, something. But your limbs feel weighted with stone, your mind frozen in grief. A sound at the doorway finally rouses you, someone clearing their throat. Citlali, a familiar voice. Elena, your neighbour, standing cautiously at the threshold. I saw you return hours ago. Is your mother? You nod wordlessly. Elena makes the sign of the cross, a gesture that still feels foreign to you despite years of Spanish rule. I'm sorry, child. So many gone. So many. She doesn't enter. No one enters a house of sickness unless they must. Instead, she asks, what will you do now? It's a good question. What can you do? Where can you go? Then you remember the bundle of herbs dropped and forgotten in your shock, your grandmother's medicines, her knowledge partially passed to you. I'll help others, you say, the decision forming as you speak it. Like my grandmother did, use what she taught me. Elena looks doubtful. You're very young. Everyone experienced is dead or dying, you point out, a harshness in your voice that surprises even you. Someone has to try. She doesn't argue. Can't argue, really, when what you've said is simple truth. Instead, she promises to send her son, one of the few in the neighborhood not yet sick, to help you bury your mother tomorrow. After she leaves, you finally find the strength to move. You close your mother's eyes, wash her face, arrange her limbs. The traditional funerary rites are forbidden by the Spanish, but you whisper the old prayers anyway, asking the gods to guide her safely to the afterlife. Night falls. You should eat something, but food holds no appeal. Instead, you gather your grandmother's medical supplies, what you collected earlier, plus what little your mother had at home. You arrange them carefully, trying to remember everything you were taught about each plant, each remedy. It's not enough. You know that. But it's something. Sleep eventually claims you, huddled on your mat in the corner, as far from your mother's body as the small home allows. You dream of rivers of blood, of mountains of corpses, of an entire world empty of human voices. You dream of your grandmother teaching you, her weathered hands guiding yours as you prepare poultices and teas. You dream of Spanish ships bringing invisible death to shores that have never known such sickness before. Morning comes as a mercy, ending the nightmares. Elena's son appears as promised, along with another neighbour. Together, you wrap your mother's body in her best blanket and carry her to the edge of the district where mass graves have been dug for the mounting dead. There's no proper ceremony. Too many bodies, too few priests, too little time. Just a quick prayer as she's laid in the earth alongside dozens of others, then covered with dirt. On your return, you find Diego, the Spanish doctor, waiting at your door. He looks even more haggard than yesterday, his eyes red-rimmed from exhaustion. "Your mother?" he asks, though he must know the answer. "Gone?" you say simply. He nods, unsurprised. "I came to see if you've reconsidered about sharing knowledge." You study him skeptically. "Why would a Spanish doctor want native remedies? Don't you have your own medicines?" "Nothing that works against this," he says bluntly. "I've lost 40 patients in 3 days. European treatments seem useless. Even prayer fails us." His honesty is unexpected. The Spanish rarely admit weakness or ignorance, especially to the native people they've conquered. "What do you offer in return?" you ask. "I have little left to lose, but my knowledge is valuable." He seems taken aback by your directness, then smiles faintly. Food, protection being associated with a Spanish doctor has advantages, and my own medical knowledge for what it's worth. You consider his offer. The practical benefits are obvious. Food is becoming scarce, as fewer people are well enough to work the fields or bring goods to market. Protection matters in a city growing more desperate by the day. But there's something else, something your grandmother believed despite everything the Spanish had done. Knowledge deserves to be shared. Medicine is for everyone. Healing transcends the boundaries of culture and conquest. "I'll come to your hospital," you decide. "But I work alongside you, not under you. I'm not your servant." He agrees readily. Too readily? You can't quite trust his motives, but what choice do you have? The hospital is housed in a former palace near the city centre. Once opulent, it's now crowded with the sick and dying. The smell hits you: first blood, excrement, rot, and beneath it all, the heavy sweetness of incense trying and failing to mask the stench of death. Pallets line the walls and crowd the floor, each holding a victim of the pestilence. Most show the same symptoms: high fever, headache, stomach pain, bleeding from various orifices. Spanish priests move among them, offering prayers and last rites. A few nuns tend to the sick, changing blood-soaked cloths, offering water, closing the eyes of the dead. Diego leads you to a small side room that serves as both storeroom and workspace. "We can prepare medicines here," he explains. "Tell me what you need." You begin working together, an unlikely partnership born of desperate times. You show him how to prepare a tea of willow bark and other herbs that reduces fever. He demonstrates a poultice that helps ease the chest pain many sufferers experience. Neither of you has a cure. Nothing stops Coccolistli once it takes hold, but your combined efforts bring comfort to the dying, and occasionally, surprisingly, someone survives. Days blend into weeks. The disease continues its rampage through Tenochtitlan and beyond. No one is counting anymore, but thousands upon thousands have died. Entire villages are empty. Fields lie untended. The great market that was once the heart of the city is a ghost town. You move into a small room at the hospital, your home now empty and full of memories you can't bear to face. Your days are spent preparing medicines, tending to the sick, teaching what you know to the Spanish nuns who are willing to learn. It's exhausting, heartbreaking work. For every person who recovers, dozens die. Sometimes you wonder if you're making any difference at all. But then there are moments, a child's fever breaking, a mother able to return to her waiting family, an old man dying in less pain because of your herbal tea that remind you why you continue. One evening, as you and Diego work side by side preparing medicines, he asks, "Do you think it will ever end? This pestilence?" You look up from the herbs you're grinding into powder. All sicknesses end eventually. The question is, how many of us will be left? He nods grimly. The Spanish settlements to the north report the same disease, and south into lands we've barely explored. It's as if the entire world is dying. Not the entire world, you think. Just your world, the one that existed before European ships brought new gods, new weapons, and new diseases to shores that had never known them. You don't say this aloud. What would be the point? Instead, you ask, what causes it, do you think? The church says sin, the old ones say angry gods. What do you believe? Diego hesitates. As a Christian, I should say God's will. As a doctor, he glances around to ensure no priests are within earshot. I think perhaps something in the air or water, something too small to see that passes from the sick to the healthy. It's a radical idea, one that contradicts both Spanish and native beliefs about disease, but it makes a certain kind of sense. If that's true, you say slowly, then gathering the sick together like this, I know, he interrupts, it may spread the disease faster. But what alternative do we have? Leave them to die alone, untended? He has no answer for that. Neither do you. As weeks turn to months, the tide of Coccolistli begins to slow, not because of any medicine or prayer, but simply because there are fewer people left to infect. Those who somehow resisted the disease or survived its ravages move cautiously through a transformed world. Where once Tenochtitlan held tens of thousands, now perhaps half that number remain. Fields lie fallow. Homes stand empty. Both Spanish and native institutions struggle to maintain order in a world turned upside down. You continue your work at the hospital, though fewer patients arrive each day. Your knowledge of traditional medicine, combined with what you've learned from Diego and the Spanish doctors, has made you a respected healer despite your youth. The great pestilence Coccolistli will eventually claim between 5 and 15 million lives across Mexico. It will be recorded as the deadliest epidemic in Mexican history. Researchers centuries later will suggest it might have been caused by a form of salmonella, though no one in your time has the knowledge to identify such things. All you know is that the world has changed irrevocably. The old ways are fading faster now, with so many elders gone. The Spanish tighten their grip on a population too devastated to resist, and you walk between worlds using native plants with Spanish techniques, praying to old gods in new churches, finding a way to survive in this altered landscape. Because that's what humans do in the face of pandemics. They adapt, they mourn, they rebuild, they remember. And they wonder, as you do while working late into the night, preparing medicines for those still suffering, when will the next great pestilence come, and who will be left to tell its story? The world shifts again. Mexico City dissolves around you, centuries compressing like an accordion. You drift through darkness, then light blooms and reality coalesces. Your name is Mikhail. You're a physician's assistant in Moscow, Russia. The year is 1771. You wake to the sound of distant shouting, not unusual these days. The city has been simmering with tension for months now. The small room is frigid, despite it being early September. Moscow autumns come early and without mercy. You pull the wool blanket tighter, not wanting to leave its relative warmth for the cold wooden floor. But duty calls. People are dying. With a sigh, you swing your legs over the edge of the narrow bed. Your quarters are sparse: a bed, a small table with a basin for washing, a trunk containing your few possessions. As a doctor's assistant, you live in a small room attached to the hospital, always on call, always available. Though hospital feels like too grand a word for what has become little more than a crowded morgue. The plague arrived in Moscow last year, sneaking in like a thief in the night. Some say it came with soldiers returning from war against the Ottoman Turks. Others blame merchants from the south. Whoever brought it, the result is the same death sweeping through the city like wildfire through dry timber. You dress quickly in your work clothes, simple wool trousers and shirt, a long coat that reaches your knees, no special protective garments like the doctors wear, no beaked mask filled with herbs, no leather gloves, no waxed cloths. Those are for the physicians. Assistants make do with what they have. The shouting outside grows louder. You move to the small window, wiping condensation from the glass. The street below is filling with people, not the usual morning traffic of workers and vendors, but an angry crowd. They carry torches despite the daylight and crude weapons farm tools, sticks, a few swords. Not again, you mutter, your breath fogging the glass. The riots have been growing worse as the plague tightens its grip on Moscow. Last week, a mob attacked the Blagushenskaya hospital after rumours spread that patients were being strangled by doctors rather than treated. The week before that, a quarantine house was burned to the ground, the sick inside barely escaping with their lives. Fear does strange things to people, turns neighbours against each other, makes reasonable men believe unreasonable things. A knock at your door pulls you from these thoughts. Mikhail Ivanovich, it's Dr. Sharapov, the physician you assist. Are you awake? Yes, doctor, coming. You grab your satchel containing herbs, bandages, and the few medicines available to you and step into the hallway. Dr. Sharapov looks like he hasn't slept in days, which is probably true. His clothes are rumpled, his grey beard untrimmed, dark circles like bruises under his eyes. There's a situation, he says without preamble. The General Hospital is turning away plague victims. They're being sent here instead. Your heart sinks. Your small hospital is already overcrowded, understaffed, undersupplied. How many? Dozens, at least. Carts are already arriving. He runs a hand through his thinning hair. And there's another problem. Did you see the crowd outside? You nod. They're saying we're poisoning the wells, that doctors are spreading the plague deliberately. His voice is bitter, as if we don't have enough to do without inventing new ways to kill people. Such rumours have been circulating for weeks, that the plague is a foreign plot, that it's punishment from God for Moscow's sins, that doctors are its agents, not its opponents. What do we do, you ask? Our job, Dr. Sharapov says simply, for as long as we can. Come, they need us downstairs. The main ward of the hospital is chaos. Every bed is filled, with additional pallets crowding the floor between them. The air is thick with the smell of sickness, sweat, blood, excrement, the sweet rotting odour of infected buboes, and everywhere the sounds of suffering, moaning, crying, prayers muttered through cracked lips, the rattling breaths of the dying. Orderlies move between the sick, changing soiled bedding, offering water, removing bodies. Most wear cloths tied over their noses and mouths, though whether this offers any real protection is anyone's guess. Mikhail, one of the orderlies, waves you over. Need help here? You navigate through the crowded room to where a man lies writhing on a pallet. His neck is grotesquely swollen on one side, a bubo, the telltale sign of plague. His face is flushed with fever, his eyes glassy and unfocused. Just brought in, the orderly explains. Family said symptoms started yesterday. Yesterday. That means he's in the early stages. Some survive this. Not many, but some. You kneel beside the pallet, opening your satchel. Can you hear me? You ask the man. His eyes roll toward you, struggling to focus. Water, he rasps. The orderly brings a cup while you prepare a herbal tincture willow bark for fever, valerian to calm the agitation, a few other herbs that sometimes seem to help. It's not much, but it's something. Drink this first, you say, helping him lift his head. Then water. He swallows obediently, grimacing at the bitter taste. You follow it with water, which he gulps desperately. What's your name? You ask, checking his pulse, racing as expected. Fyodor. His voice is slightly stronger after the water. Fyodor Kuznetsov. Mikhail Ivanovich, you introduce yourself. I'm going to help you, Fyodor. It might be a lie, probably is, but sometimes hope is the best medicine available. You examine the bubo on his neck, hot, swollen, painful to the touch. In the worst cases, these swellings grow to the size of apples, turning black before bursting and suppurating. This one is still relatively small, which might be a good sign. We need to draw out the poison, you explain, preparing a poultice of mustard, garlic and oniona remedy Dr. Sharapov learned from French physicians. This will be uncomfortable, but it may help. As you work, applying the poultice to Fyodor's swollen lymph node, you talk to distract him from the pain. Do you live nearby? In Moscow? Village. 20 versts north, he manages. Came to sell furs. Started feeling ill at market. A familiar story. The plague doesn't care if you're a Moscow resident or a visitor, rich or poor, young or old. It takes all comers. My family, Fyodor says suddenly, his hand gripping your wrist with surprising strength. My wife, children, they were with me. Your stomach drops. At the market, he nods weakly. Where are they now? You ask, though you dread the answer. Don't know. His eyes fill with tears. We were separated when I collapsed. The crowd, everyone was running, afraid of contagion. The thought of a woman and children alone in plague-stricken Moscow, possibly infected themselves, makes your chest tight with worry. But there's nothing you can do. The city is too large, the chaos too complete. Rest now, you tell Fyodor, finishing with the poultice. Save your strength. I'll ask about your family. But you both know it's an empty promise. In this overwhelmed hospital with new victims arriving by the hour, no one has time to search for missing families. The day progresses in a blur of similar scenes. More patients arriving, more poultices applied, more tinctures administered, more comfort offered to the dying. You work alongside Dr. Sharapov and the other assistants, moving from bed to bed without rest. By midday, the shouting outside has grown louder. Occasionally, something crashes against the hospital walls, rocks or debris thrown by the growing mob. "They're getting bolder," one of the orderlies mutters as you work together, changing the soiled bedding of an unconscious patient. "Yesterday, they just shouted. Today, they're throwing things. Tomorrow..." You don't want to think about tomorrow. About what happens if the mob decides to enter the hospital rather than just threaten it from outside. A crash of breaking glass answers that question sooner than expected. Someone has thrown a rock through one of the windows. Shards of glass rain down on a row of pallets, causing cries of alarm from patients able to make noise. "Get something to board that up," Dr. Sharapov orders, seemingly unruffled by the escalation, quickly before they throw something worse. You help an orderly nail planks over the broken window, acutely aware of the angry voices just outside. What do they want? Do they really believe doctors are causing the plague? Or is this just fear and grief finding a convenient target? As if reading your thoughts, Dr. Sharapov says quietly, "They need someone to blame, something they can fight. An invisible enemy is too frightening. So they blame us instead," you say, hammer pausing mid-swing. He nods. "It's happened before. During the Black Death, they blamed Jews. In Rome, Christians. Always someone." You finish boarding up the window in silence, contemplating this cycle of blame that seems as persistent as the plague itself. By evening, the hospital quiets somewhat, not because patients are recovering, most aren't, but because many have died, their bodies removed to carts outside for mass burial. New arrivals have slowed, though whether that's due to the mob outside or just the lateness of the hour, you can't say. You check on Fyodor again. His fever burns hotter, his breathing more laboured. The bubo on his neck has grown despite the poultice. Not a good sign. "My family," he murmurs when he sees you, his thoughts still fixed on his lost wife and children. "I asked," you lie gently. "No one has seen them, but that could be good news. Maybe they left the city, went back to your village." He doesn't look convinced, but nods weakly. "Water," he whispers. As you help him drink, Dr. Sharapov appears at your side. "Mikhail," a word. You follow him to a quieter corner of the ward, though quiet is relative in this place of suffering. "The mob is growing," he says without preamble. "The police are outnumbered. There's talk they might storm the hospital tonight." Your mouth goes dry. What do we do? He looks older than his 60 years in this moment, the weight of responsibility bowing his shoulders. "Those who can walk should leave. Find shelter elsewhere. As for the rest..." He doesn't finish the thought. "We can't abandon them," you protest. "We can't save them if we're dead," he counters, his voice gentle but firm. Sometimes retreat is the wiser course. You know he's right, but it doesn't make the decision any easier. These people came to you for help. To leave them feels like the worst kind of betrayal. "I'll stay," you hear yourself saying. "Help those who can walk to leave, then come back for the others if there's time." Dr. Sharapov studies your face, then nods slowly. "I thought you might say that. Very well. I'll organize the evacuation of those able to move. You prepare the others just in case we can return for them." The next hour passes in controlled chaos. Patients who can walk or even crawl are helped out a back entrance, directed toward other hospitals or makeshift shelters. Orderlies carry some of the less severely ill. Dr. Sharapov moves through it all with calm efficiency, directing, reassuring, never showing the fear he must feel. You remain with those too sick to be moved, about 20 patients, including Fyodor. You go from bed to bed, offering water, adjusting poultices, whispering reassurances you're not sure you believe yourself. Outside, the mob's shouts grow louder, punctuated by the crash of objects against the building. The few remaining orderlies exchange nervous glances. One by one, they make excuses to step outside, not returning. Soon, it's just you and the dying. "They're coming, aren't they?" Fyodor asks when you check on him again. His voice is weaker, but his eyes are surprisingly clear. You see no point in lying. "Yes, but help will come too. The authorities won't let this happen." Even as you say it, you wonder if it's true. The plague has strained Moscow to breaking point. Food is scarce. A third of the population has died or fled. The police are overwhelmed. The military focused on maintaining quarantine boundaries rather than keeping order within them. "You should go," Fyodor says, surprising you. "Save yourself." The selflessness of it, this dying man concerned for your safety, brings a lump to your throat. "I'll stay a while longer," you say. "Rest now." The crash of the front door being forced open ends any further discussion. The mob has breached the hospital. Your heart pounds as you hear them moving through the building, shouting, breaking things. They'll reach the ward any moment. A strange calm settled over you. You've seen so much death these past months, held the hands of the dying, closed the eyes of the dead. Perhaps your turn has come. There are worse ways to go than trying to help others. The ward door bursts open. A dozen men pour in, faces contorted with anger and fear. They carry torches, clubs, farm implements turned to weapons. Behind them, more crowd in the hallway, peering into the ward with a mixture of rage and horror. "There he is," someone shouts, pointing at you. "One of the poisoners." "I'm a doctor's assistant," you say, keeping your voice steady. "I'm trying to help these people." "Liar," another voice calls. "You're spreading the plague, killing good Russians." Look around you, you gesture to the patients. These are your neighbors, your fellow Muscovites. They need help, not violence. A big man with a blacksmith's build steps forward, a heavy hammer in his hand. "My wife died 3 days ago. My children are sick. The doctors did nothing, We're doing everything we can," you say, hearing the inadequacy of the words even as you speak them. "There's no cure for plague. We can only try to ease suffering." "Enough talk," someone shouts from the back. "Burn it down, burn it all down." The mood shifts palpably. Individual grief and anger coalescing into mob mentality. You've seen it before during food riots earlier in the summer. Once it takes hold, there's no reasoning with it. "If you burn this place," you try one last time, "you're killing these people yourselves. Is that what you want? To become murderers?" A moment of hesitation ripples through the crowd. Some look uncertain, glancing at the patients on their pallets. Others grip their weapons tighter, unmoved. The blacksmith steps closer, hammer raised. "Maybe we should just kill the doctor instead. Make an example. This is it, you think? Your last moment." "Stop!" The voice booms from the doorway with the authority of a cannon shot. The crowd parts, revealing a figure in the elaborate uniform of a senior police official. "What is the meaning of this?" he demands, striding into the ward. Behind him, a dozen armed police officers file in, hands on their weapons. The crowd's energy shifts again, uncertainty replacing bloodlust. The blacksmith lowers his hammer slightly. "This man is spreading the plague," someone finally says, pointing at you. "All the doctors are. They're poisoning the wells." The police official looks at you, then surveys the ward full of suffering patients. "Does this look like poisoning to you?" he asks the crowd. "Or does it look like men and women sick with plague being cared for by medical staff?" No one answers. Moscow is under martial law by order of the Empress Catherine herself, the official continues. Rioting is punishable by imprisonment or death. Return to your homes immediately or face the consequences. The threat hangs in the air. For a moment you think the crowd might still turn violent. There are more of them than police after all. But slowly, reluctantly, they begin to disperse. The blacksmith gives you one last hate-filled glare before following the others out. When they're gone, you slump against the nearest wall, knees suddenly weak with relief. "Thank you," you manage to say to the police official. "Another minute and—" He cuts you off with a curt nod. "Where is Dr. Sharapov?" "Evacuating patients who could walk. He should return soon." The official frowns. "We'll need to move these remaining patients as well. This hospital isn't safe anymore. The mob may return in greater numbers." He turns to his men, issuing orders for carts and stretchers. "They're to be taken to the new quarantine facility outside the city walls," he explains, "purpose-built to house plague victims away from the general population." As preparations begin, you check on Fyodor one last time. His breathing is shallow, his skin burning hot despite the cool cloths you've placed on his forehead. "We're moving you," you tell him, "to a safer place." His eyes flutter open, unfocused. "My family," he whispers. "We'll find them," you promise, knowing it's likely impossible but unable to deny this small comfort to a dying man. The evacuation proceeds with military efficiency. Patients are carefully transferred to carts and stretchers. Police maintain a perimeter around the hospital, keeping the lingering crowd at bay. By midnight, the last patient has been removed. You stand in the empty ward, feeling an exhaustion so profound it seems to penetrate to your bones. The floor is littered with debris from the mob's brief occupation, broken furniture, shattered medicine bottles, abandoned torches. "Mikhail Ivanovich, Dr. Sharapov has returned, his face grim. You're alive. I feared the worst when I heard the mob had broken in. The police arrived just in time," you say. "All the patients have been evacuated." He nods, surveying the destruction. "This was my father's hospital before mine. 30 years I've worked within these walls." His voice catches slightly. "Now look at it." There's nothing to say to that. The plague has taken more than lives, it's taken security, certainty, the basic fabric of society. "Come," Dr. Sharapov says after a moment. "We're needed at the quarantine facility. Our work continues, even if the location changes." As you follow him out of the ruined hospital, you realize you've lost track of time. How long has the plague been in Moscow now? Months? A year? The days blend together in an endless procession of sickness and death. But it won't last forever. You know this from medical histories, from the teachings of physicians who have studied past outbreaks. Even the Black Death eventually receded. This plague too will run its course. The question is, how many will be left when it's done? Already, Moscow has lost perhaps a third of its population dead or fled to the countryside. Streets that should be crowded stand empty. Markets that should be bustling are silent. Churches fill with the desperate rather than the devout. Outside the city walls, the quarantine facility looms a sprawling complex of hastily constructed wooden buildings surrounded by a high fence. Guards stand at the entrance, checking papers, ensuring only medical personnel and the sick enter. Inside, organized chaos reigns. Hundreds of patients lie on simple cots arranged in long rows. Doctors, assistants, and nuns move among them, doing what little they can with limited supplies and knowledge. You find Fyodor easily enough. His cot is in the section for the most severely ill. His condition has worsened during the transport. The bubo on his neck has darkened, and now similar swellings are visible under his arm. His breathing is laboured, his consciousness fading. You sit beside him, taking his hand. There's nothing more to be done medically. All you can offer now is the comfort of human touch, the assurance that he won't die alone. "My family," he whispers, the words so faint you have to lean close to hear them. "They're safe." You lie gently. "They're waiting for you." A faint smile touches his lips. He believes you, or chooses to. Either way, it brings him peace in his final moments. As the night deepens around the quarantine facility, as patients live and die under your care, you can't help but reflect on the strange continuity of human experience across the centuries. The plague in Athens, in Rome, in Constantinople, in London, and now in Moscow. Different times, different places, but the same fundamental story. Sickness spreads, people die, society strains and sometimes breaks. The survivors rebuild. Fyodor's hand grows cold in yours, another life claimed by the pestilence. You close his eyes gently, murmuring the orthodox prayer for the dead. Then you move on to the next patient, and the next, and the next, because that's what those who care for the sick have always done throughout history's worst pandemics. They continue, they persist, they bear witness to suffering and try, however imperfectly, to ease it. The Moscow plague will eventually claim between 50,000 and 100,000 lives before burning itself out. Remarkably, it will be the last major outbreak of bubonic plague in Europe, the disease that has haunted the continent for centuries finally receding from its shores. But other pandemics will come, in other times, in other places, and always there will be those who stay when others flee, who help when help seems hopeless, who remember that even in humanity's darkest hours, compassion remains our greatest strength and surest hope. As dawn breaks over the quarantine facility, bringing another day of struggle and loss, you take a moment to look eastward, toward the rising sun, and you wonder, as humans always have in times of great calamity, what the future holds, what new challenges await, what lessons will be learned from this suffering, and which will be forgotten until the next great pandemic comes. The world shifts once more. Moscow fades away and you drift through darkness. Then light returns and you find yourself in a new time, a new place, a new life. Your name is Sarah. You're a nurse at Camp Devon's military hospital near Boston, Massachusetts. The year is 1918. You wake to the sound of coughing. Not just one person, many. A chorus of hacking, wheezing and gasping that's become the soundtrack of your life these past few weeks. The narrow bed in the nurse's quarters creaks as you sit up, rubbing sleep from your eyes. Outside, dawn is just breaking, pale light filtering through the thin curtains. You've managed maybe 4 hours of sleep. It will have to be enough. Your uniform hangs on a hook by the door, the white dress, apron and cap that mark you as one of the angels of mercy in this place of suffering. You dress mechanically, fingers working the familiar buttons, straightening the cap over your dark hair, which you've cut short for practicality. No time for breakfast. The night nurse will be desperate for relief, and there are too many patients, too few hands to help them. The hospital wasn't built for this. Camp Devon's was meant to train soldiers for the Great War raging in Europe, not to house thousands of the sick and dying. The medical facilities were designed for typical military injuries and illnesses, broken bones, training accidents, the occasional outbreak of measles or mumps. Not this, not what people are calling the Spanish flu, though there's nothing Spanish about it except the newspapers that first reported it openly. Spain, neutral in the war, had no censorship restricting coverage of the disease. The United States, along with other warring nations, kept early reports quiet to maintain morale. Fat lot of good that did. The hallway outside the nurses' quarters is already busy. Orderlies pushing gurneys, doctors conferring in low voices, nurses rushing between wards with arms full of supplies. Everyone looks exhausted. Everyone's wearing a gauze mask over their nose and mouth, a flimsy barrier against an invisible enemy. Sarah, Dr. Reynolds, waves you over, his voice muffled behind his mask. Thank God, we've got 20 new cases since midnight. We're putting them in the recreation hall. The wards are full. 20? Your stomach drops. Military or civilian? Soldiers, mostly, just back from the front, probably picked it up on the transport ships. He runs a hand through his thinning hair, a gesture of frustration you've come to know well. The damn war ends, and now this. The war isn't officially over yet, but everyone knows it's just a matter of time. Germany is on the brink of surrender. American troops are returning home by the thousands, bringing the influenza with them. I'll head to the rec hall, you tell Dr. Reynolds. Has anyone relieved Nurse Wilson in Ward C? Nurse Patterson took over an hour ago. Wilson's down with it herself now. Another one. 3 nurses have fallen ill in the past week alone. 2 orderlies, 1 doctor. The flu doesn't care what uniform you wear. The recreation hall has been transformed overnight. The pool tables and card tables that once offered soldiers a few hours of distraction from training are gone, replaced by rows of cots. Most are already occupied. The air is thick with the sounds of laboured breathing, coughing, occasional moans. Nurse Evans, a young orderly, practically a boy, hurries towards you. We've run out of clean sheets and the laundry can't keep up. Use blankets for now, you tell him, and see if any of the recovering patients in Ward A can be discharged. We need the beds. He nods and hurries off. You take a deep breath, steeling yourself for the day ahead, and begin moving from patient to patient. The first is a soldier, maybe 22. His face is flushed with fever, his breathing rapid and shallow. When you place a thermometer in his mouth, it reads 104°F. How long have you been sick, you ask, helping him sit up to drink some water. Started on the ship, he says between laboured breaths. Thought it was just seasickness at first. Then the fever hit yesterday. Any family we should notify? He shakes his head slightly. Just my mother in Chicago. Don't worry her yet. I'll be fine in a few days. You don't contradict him, but you've seen how quickly this influenza progresses, how it starts like any other fluff fever, headache, body aches, then suddenly turns deadly. Patients who seem to be improving in the morning are gasping for breath by evening, their skin turning a dusky blue from lack of oxygen. The young ones are hit hardest. Unlike typical influenza, which usually claims the elderly and very young, this strain seems to prefer healthy adults in their 20s and 30s, the very people who should be most resistant. The theory, according to Dr. Reynolds, is that their strong immune systems actually work against them overreacting to the virus, flooding the lungs with fluid in a desperate attempt to fight the infection. The resulting pneumonia drowns them from the inside out. You move on to the next patient and the next, taking temperatures, administering aspirin for fever, changing sweat-soaked bedding, helping those who can still swallow to take broth or water, noting which ones have developed the ominous blue tinge to their lips and fingertips. By mid-morning, 3 more cases arrive. By noon, another 5. The hospital administrators have stopped turning away civilian cases. There's nowhere else for them to go. The city hospitals are as overwhelmed as Camp Devon's. "Miss?" a weak voice calls out as you pass. "Miss, please." You turn to see an older man, perhaps 50, reaching out a trembling hand. His lips are blue, his breathing laboured. "My wife," he gasps. "Need to tell her?" You kneel beside his cot, taking his hand. It's cold, despite his fever, the fingernails blue-tinged. "What's her name, sir? Where can we find her?" "Mary, 42 Elm Street." Each word is a struggle. "Tell her, I'm sorry, for the fight. Tell her." A coughing fit interrupts him. Violent spasms that bring up frothy, blood-tinged sputum. You help him turn to his side so he doesn't aspirate, holding his shoulders as the coughing tears through his weakened body. When it finally subsides, he lies still, eyes closed, breath coming in short, irregular gasps. You check his pulse, rapid, thready. He doesn't have long. "I'll tell her," you promise, though you have no idea if anyone will actually have time to deliver such a message. Try to rest now. His eyes flutter open briefly. "Cold," he murmurs. "So cold." You find an extra blanket and tuck it around him, knowing it won't help the bone-deep chill that comes with approaching death. Then you move on to the next patient, and the next, and the next. The day blurs into a procession of faces, symptoms, small kindnesses offered against overwhelming suffering. You barely notice when someone presses a sandwich into your hand around what must be lunchtime. You eat mechanically, not tasting it, then return to your rounds. Late afternoon brings Dr. Morris, the hospital's most senior physician, to the recreation hall. He walks slowly between the rows of cots, stopping occasionally to examine a patient, his face growing grimmer with each step. "Nurse Evans," he calls, beckoning you over. "A word, please." You follow him to a quieter corner, though nowhere in this makeshift ward is truly quiet. "We're losing this battle," he says without preamble, his voice low. "This morning's count was 73 dead since midnight. The morgue is overflowing. We're using the ice house as backup storage for the bodies, and even that's nearly full." The number stuns you. 73 in just one hospital, and it's happening all across the country, all across the world. "What do we do?" you ask, hating how helpless you sound. Dr. Morris removes his spectacles, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Keep fighting. What else can we do? But I've sent a telegram to Boston for more doctors, more nurses. God knows if any will come. Everyone's afraid. With good reason, you think, but don't say." "There's something else," Dr. Morris continues. "The town council is closing public gatherings, schools, churches, theatres. They're considering a mask ordinance for anyone on the streets." These measures seem sensible to you. Will it help? Perhaps, if people comply. He sounds doubtful. The war news has everyone wanting to celebrate. Hard to tell them to stay home just when victory seems near. Victory. The word feels hollow, with so many dying here at home after surviving the trenches and gas attacks of France. "I should get back to my patients," you say. Dr. Morris nods, replacing his spectacles. "Carry on, Nurse Evans, and take care of yourself. We can't afford to lose you too." As evening approaches, you find yourself back with the older man who wanted to contact his wife. He's unconscious now, his breathing so shallow it's barely perceptible. You check his pulse, faint, irregular, minutes away from stopping altogether. You sit with him, holding his hand. No one should die alone, but in a pandemic, it happens all too often. Not on your watch, not if you can help it. "It's all right," you say softly, though you don't know if he can hear you. "You're not alone. I'm here with you." His breathing hitches, then stops. Starts again with a rattling sound, the death rattle they taught you about in nursing school but never quite prepared you for. Then stops for good. You close his eyes gently, say a quick prayer, and mark the time of death in your notebook. The orderlies will come for the body soon. The bed will be cleaned, disinfected, and given to another patient within the hour. The cycle continues. By the time your shift finally ends, well after dark, you're swaying on your feet with exhaustion. 8 more patients have died under your care. 15 new cases have been admitted. 4 nurses and 2 orderlies have failed to report for the evening shift, sick themselves, most likely. You should go straight to bed, try to get what rest you can before doing it all again tomorrow. But your mind is too full, your heart too heavy. Instead, you find yourself walking outside, removing your mask to breathe the cool autumn air. The hospital grounds are quiet, most soldiers confined to barracks to prevent spread of the disease. In the distance, the lights of the small town twinkle. Are people gathering there despite the warnings, seeking comfort in each other's company, unknowingly spreading death among themselves? You think about the progression of this pandemic, how it started small, possibly at an army camp in Kansas, then exploded across the globe, carried by troops shipping out to the war, how it seemed to recede during the summer, giving false hope, then returned with a vengeance in the fall. How it's different from other diseases you've studied: bubonic plague with its telltale buboes, smallpox with its distinctive rash. This influenza looks like ordinary flu until suddenly it isn't, the victim's skin turning blue as they drown in their own fluids. And yet, there are similarities, too. The fear, the desperate search for treatments, the breakdown of normal social functions as too many fall ill too quickly. The way it strikes without regard for wealth, status, or character. Some things never change. A sound breaks into your thoughts, footsteps approaching on the gravel path. You turn to see Dr. Reynolds, his mask hanging around his neck, face haggard in the moonlight. Couldn't sleep? He asks, coming to stand beside you. Didn't try yet, you admit. Too wound up. He nods, understanding. I keep thinking about the Black Death, how they had no idea what caused it, no real treatments. At least we have germ theory now. We know it's a virus, even if we can't see it or stop it yet. Small comfort to those dying in there, you say, gesturing toward the hospital buildings. True, he sighs heavily, but humanity survived the Black Death. We'll survive this too. Or will you, though? The question hangs unspoken between you. Reports from other cities, a grim Philadelphia burying its dead in mass graves, cities running out of coffins, funeral homes so overwhelmed they're stacking bodies like cordwood. My brother's a doctor in Philadelphia, Dr. Reynolds says, as if reading your thoughts. He wrote that they've lost more civilians to the flu in a month than soldiers killed in the entire war. The scale of it is almost impossible to comprehend. How does it end, you ask? Does it just burn itself out? Eventually, all pandemics do. He looks up at the star-filled sky. The question is what's left afterward. You stand in silence for a while, 2 exhausted healers taking a moment's respite from the battle raging inside. The cool air feels like a blessing on your face after hours in the stifling, disease-filled hospital. I should try to sleep, you say finally. Tomorrow will be another long day. Dr. Reynolds nods. I'll walk you back. As you make your way toward the nurses' quarters, he asks, did you always want to be a nurse? The question feels strangely normal, a reminder that ordinary conversation still exists in this extraordinary time. No, you say with a small smile. I wanted to be a doctor, actually, but my father said that wasn't suitable for a woman. He was wrong. Dr. Reynolds says simply. You'd have made an excellent doctor. Maybe after the war things will change, you say, though you're not sure you believe it. Women have been doing men's jobs while they fought, running factories, driving ambulances, saving lives, he adds, like you're doing now. You reach the nurses' quarters, pausing at the door. Good night, doctor. Good night, Nurse Evans. He hesitates, then adds, you know, I never asked, do you have family? Someone waiting for you after all this? The question catches you off guard. A sister in New York. Our parents are gone. You don't add that your fiancé died at Belleau Wood just 4 months ago. Some wounds are still too fresh to touch. He seems about to say something more, but a call from across the compound interrupts. Dr. Reynolds Urgent in Ward B. Duty calls, he says with a wry smile. Get some rest, Sarah, while you can. As he hurries away, you enter the quiet building. Most of the other nurses are either on night shift or already asleep. You move silently to your room, shedding your uniform, washing up with the cold water in your basin. The narrow bed welcomes you, though sleep feels far away despite your exhaustion. Your mind won't quiet, filled with images from the day blue-tinged faces, bloody sputum, vacant eyes, and statistics, terrible statistics. How many dead today? How many more tomorrow? The Spanish flu, misnamed though it is, will eventually infect 1/3 of the world's population. Between 20 and 50 million people will die, more than in the Great War itself. It will reshape societies, alter economies, change how future generations think about public health. But in this moment, in your small room at Camp Devons, those are just abstract numbers. What matters are the individual lives, the young soldier who just wanted to get home to his mother, the old man who needed to apologize to his wife, the nurse who fell ill while caring for others. Each a world unto themselves. Each part of the vast, complex tapestry of human experience during a pandemic. As sleep finally begins to claim you, you wonder, as humans always have in times of great suffering, what comes next. Will this plague, like others before it, eventually recede? Will humanity learn from it or repeat the same mistakes when the next one comes? And will you be there to witness it or become just another statistic, another victim of the invisible enemy that has turned the world upside down? The questions follow you into uneasy dreams where faceless patients call for help you cannot give and masks cannot protect against the miasma of death that hangs in the air like a shroud. The world shifts one final time. Camp Devons and the Spanish flu recede into memory. You drift through darkness, then emerge into a different reality. Your name is Marcus. You're a nurse and community health advocate at a clinic in San Francisco. The year is 1985. You wake slowly, the morning light filtering through Venetian blinds, casting striped shadows across your bedroom. Unlike the cramped nurses' quarters at Camp Devons or the sparse room attached to the Moscow hospital, this space is yours, a small but comfortable apartment in the Castro district. The sheets around you are soft cotton, the mattress supportive, nothing like the rough pallets of ancient Athens or the straw-stuffed sacks of medieval Bristol. Such simple comforts, taken for granted by most, feel like luxuries when you remember those other lives, those other pandemics. Your alarm clock reads 6:30 a.m. Time to get up, to face another day of watching young men waste away, of fighting an invisible enemy, of struggling against not just a virus, but the fear and prejudice surrounding it. AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, the latest pandemic to sweep through humanity, though many refuse to call it that. Gay plague, some newspapers have called it. Divine punishment, according to certain preachers, as if viruses have moral agendas, as if disease discriminates. You've seen this before, of course. In Moscow, when they blamed doctors for spreading the plague. In Bristol, when they said it was God's wrath for sin. In Athens, when they abandoned all rules of religion and law in their panic. Some things never change across all the centuries you've witnessed. You shower and dress simply: jeans, a button-up shirt, comfortable shoes. Your work isn't about appearances, it's about being there, being present for people who have been abandoned by so many others. The morning is cool and foggy, typical San Francisco weather. You walk the few blocks to the community clinic where you've worked for the past 3 years, ever since the epidemic began claiming your friends, your neighbors, your community. Unlike the massive hospitals of earlier pandemics, this clinic is smaller converted Victorian house with a rainbow flag hanging beside the door. Inside, it's warm and deliberately homey, with comfortable chairs in the waiting room, art on the walls, plants in the windows. "Morning, Marcus," calls Elena from the reception desk. Her dark hair is streaked with premature grey, her eyes tired but kind. "Coffee's fresh. You'll need it. We've got a full schedule today." "Thanks." You pour yourself a cup, doctoring it with milk and sugar. "Any overnight calls?" Her expression falls slightly. "Michael Peters, his partner, called around 2 a.m. Pneumonia's getting worse. They're taking him to general." You close your eyes briefly. "Michael, 32, former dancer, diagnosed 6 months ago. One of the first in your support group to develop full-blown AIDS. I'll check in after my shift," you say. "Anyone else?" 3 new referrals, all just diagnosed, all scared out of their minds. She hands you their files. "Dr. Rivera asked if you'd see them first. Do the intake counselling." Intake counselling, such a clinical term for what amounts to sitting with someone whose world has just imploded, whose future has suddenly contracted from decades to perhaps months, and trying to offer some glimmer of hope, some path forward. "Of course," you say, taking the files. "When do they arrive?" "First one's here now." She nods toward a young man sitting alone in the corner of the waiting room, nervously thumbing through a magazine without seeming to actually read it. "James Walker, 27, got his results yesterday." You study him for a moment, thin but not yet wasted. No visible lesions, alert eyes darting anxiously around the room. Early stage. There's still time for him, still treatments to try, infections to prevent. More time than the thousands already gone, more options than existed even a year ago as researchers race to understand this new disease, to develop treatments, if not a cure. "I'll take him to the back office," you tell Elena. "Could you bring us some tea in about 10 minutes? She nods, understanding the ritual. Tea provides not just comfort, but something to do with shaking hands, something to focus on besides devastating news and uncertain futures. "Mr. Walker," you approach with a gentle smile. "I'm Marcus. Would you like to come with me? We can talk privately." He stands, awkward, unsure. Are you a doctor?" "I'm a nurse and counsellor," you explain. "I work with people who've just been diagnosed. Help them understand what's happening and what comes next." "What comes next," he repeats hollowly, "is dying. What comes next?" You meet his gaze directly. "Not necessarily, not right away. There's a lot we can do, a lot you can do. That's what we're going to talk about." You lead him to the small office you use for counselling, comfortable chairs, no desks separating you from patients, plants and artwork, making it feel less clinical. The blinds are open, letting in soft morning light. "Please, sit," you gesture to a chair. "I know yesterday was probably the worst day of your life. Receiving that diagnosis, there's nothing that can prepare you for it." He sits on the edge of the chair, coiled with tension. "The doctor who gave me my results couldn't get me out of his office fast enough, like I was radioactive or something. Just handed me a pamphlet and said to come here." Your jaw tightens. You've heard this too many times. Medical professionals sworn to care for the sick, treating AIDS patients like pariahs. It echoes the abandonment of plague victims in earlier centuries, when even family members fled from the infected. "I'm sorry that happened," you say sincerely. "It shouldn't be that way, not from medical professionals who should know better." "So I'm not dangerous to be around? Because my mum, when I told her..." His voice breaks, and he looks away. "No," you say firmly. AIDS isn't spread through casual contact, not by sharing a meal or a bathroom or living in the same house. We know that for certain now. The relief on his face is palpable, though tinged with hurt. Maybe you could tell my mum that. I'd be happy to talk with her, you say, and mean it. Education is half the battle in this pandemic, fighting misinformation, superstition, and fear. Why don't you bring her to our family support group? It's on Thursday evenings. He nods uncertainly. Maybe, if she'll come. The next hour passes in gentle explanation, in answering questions, in outlining what treatments exist, limited though they are, and what studies he might qualify for. You discuss nutrition, stress reduction, support groups, the practical matters of living with HIV before it progresses to AIDS. The importance of hope without denial. Throughout, you watch his posture gradually relax, his breathing slow, the panic receding, replaced by a wary determination. It's a transformation you've seen before, the initial shock giving way to the human instinct to adapt, to survive, to find a path forward, even in the darkest circumstances. Elena brings tea, as arranged. James wraps his hands around the warm mug like an anchor in a storm. The hardest part, he says finally, is feeling so alone, like I'm the only one going through this. You're not alone, you tell him. That's what this place is for. People who understand, who are walking the same path. Come to group tonight. See for yourself. After he leaves, with appointments scheduled and pamphlets in hand, you take a moment to center yourself before the next patient arrives. This work demands everything: emotional presence, medical knowledge, unwavering compassion while offering little respite. The pandemic doesn't pause for caregiver fatigue. The day progresses in a blur of patients, phone calls, paperwork, a support group in the afternoon where a dozen men in various stages of the disease share stories, fears, rare moments of laughter. You moderate, guide, listen, offer tissues for tears and gentle redirection when anger threatens to consume the room. By evening, you're drained but not finished. You still need to visit Michael at San Francisco General, in the ward that's become known informally as the AIDS floor. Unlike earlier pandemics, where all victims were housed together by necessity, these patients are isolated not for lack of space, but because many hospital staff refuse to treat them. The elevator ride to the 6th floor feels familiar. How many hospitals have you walked through across the centuries? The technologies change, the architecture evolves, but the weight in the air, the particular quality of silence punctuated by moans and coughs, the underlying current of anxiety, these remain constant. Michael's room is at the end of the hall. You pause in the doorway, taking in the scene. He lies small and wasted in the hospital bed, oxygen tubes in his nose, an IV in one thin arm. His partner David sits beside him, reading aloud from a magazine, his voice steady despite the dark circles under his eyes. "Knock, knock," you say softly. David looks up, relief washing over his tired face. "Marcus, thank God. Tell them he needs more pain medication. They won't listen to me." You enter the room, medical advocate hat firmly in place. When did he last get something? What was it? 4 hours ago. Some codeine thing. It barely touched it. You check Michael's chart hanging at the foot of the bed. The attending physician is Dr. Harrison, who you know has a reputation for undertreating AIDS patients, claiming they're drug-seeking. "I'll find the nurse, you promise. And if necessary, I'll call Dr. Lewis from the clinic. She has privileges here." Michael stirs at the sound of your voice, eyes fluttering open. Once vibrant blue, they're now dulled with pain and medication. "Marcus," he whispers, "you came. Of course I came." You take his free hand, noting the purple Kaposi's sarcoma lesions that mar the skin. "How are you holding up?" A weak smile. "Been better. Breathing's hard." I'm going to see about getting you more comfortable, you tell him. Just rest. It takes 20 minutes of polite but firm insistence, 2 conversations with increasingly irritated nurses, and finally a call to Dr. Lewis before Michael receives adequate pain medication. You stay until it takes effect, watching his face relax as the pain recedes. Thank you, David says, walking you to the elevator afterward. I don't know what we'd do without you. The way they treat us here, like we're nothing, like he deserves this. The anger in his voice is justified. You've seen it before, the way suffering is compounded by judgment, by the belief that disease is somehow a reflection of moral character. The lepers of ancient times, the Jews blamed for the Black Death, the sinners targeted as carriers of God's wrath in every pandemic throughout history. It's not right, you agree, and it's not everyone. There are good doctors and nurses here too, fighting the same battles we are. We just need to find them, work with them. David nods wearily. I know, it's just exhausting, fighting the disease and the system at the same time. Go back to him, you say gently. Try to get some rest yourself. I'll check in tomorrow. Outside the hospital, night has fallen. The city lights twinkle against the dark sky, deceptively normal, as if thousands aren't dying, as if funerals haven't become weekly occurrences, as if an entire community isn't being decimated while much of society looks away. You think about James, newly diagnosed and terrified, about Michael fighting for each breath, about the countless others you've counselled, advocated for, sometimes just held as they cried. And you think about all those who came before the plague victims of Athens, Rome, Constantinople, Bristol, Moscow, the influenza patients gasping for breath at Camp Devons, different diseases, different times, but the same human suffering, the same struggle to maintain dignity and compassion in the face of overwhelming loss. The walk home takes you past the Names Project workshop, where volunteers are assembling what will eventually be called the AIDS Memorial Quilt. Through the windows, you can see people working late into the night, sewing panels honouring those lost. Each panel represents a life, a story cut short. Together, they make visible the scale of a pandemic many prefer to ignore. It strikes you as something new in the history of pandemics, this deliberate act of remembrance, of refusing to let the dead become mere statistics. In Athens, the dead were piled in heaps. In Constantinople, thrown into the sea. In Bristol, buried in mass graves. In Moscow, carted away by the dozens. Here, each one is named. Each one is remembered. You stop at a small market to buy something for dinner, too tired to cook from scratch. The young cashier smiles as she rings up your pre-made sandwich and apple. "Have a good night," she says. Such a simple exchange, such an ordinary moment, yet you're acutely aware of how precious these mundane interactions are, how easily they can vanish in the chaos of a pandemic. You've seen streets empty of all but the dead and dying, markets closed for lack of vendors, social fabric shredded by fear and loss. At home, you eat without really tasting the food, then shower away the hospital smells that cling to your clothes and skin. The hot water is a luxury that never fails to amaze you when you remember the cold sponge baths of earlier centuries, the struggle to find clean water of any temperature during plagues. Sleep comes fitfully. Your dreams a jumble of faces and places across time. Athens and Rome and Constantinople, Bristol and Moscow and Boston, and now San Francisco. Different worlds connected by the thread of your consciousness, witnessing humanity at its most vulnerable, its most afraid. And sometimes, its most compassionate. Morning arrives too soon. Another day, another battle in a war that feels endless. But as you dress, prepare breakfast, ready yourself to return to the clinic, you realize something. AIDS won't be the last pandemic. There will be others in other times, affecting other populations. The cycle will continue as it always has, testing each generation anew. What changes, what evolves, is not the existence of disease, but humanity's response to it. The growth of medical knowledge, the development of treatments and vaccines, the slow, uneven, but real progress toward more compassionate care. In ancient Athens, victims were simply left to die. In medieval Bristol, the best medicine was prayer. In Moscow, doctors were blamed rather than supported. In Camp Devon's, knowledge of germ theory existed, but effective treatments didn't. And now, with AIDS, you have antiretroviral drugs being developed, clinical trials underway, researchers working around the clock to understand and combat the virus. You have community organizations like your clinic providing care and support when official channels fail. You have activists demanding attention, funding, action. It's not enough, not nearly enough. Too many have died, are dying, will die before this pandemic is controlled, but it's something evidence that humanity can learn, can grow, can do better, even if the progress is measured in inches rather than miles. The phone rings as you're about to leave for work. It's Elena from the clinic. Marcus. Her voice is soft, breaking. Michael Peters. He passed this morning. David called just now. The news hits like a physical blow, though not a surprising one. You'd known Michael was near the end. Still, each loss carries its own specific weight, its own particular grief. I'll call David, you say, and I'll be in shortly. After hanging up, you sit at your kitchen table, allowing yourself a moment to feel the loss, not just of Michael, but of all those you've watched die across the centuries. The Athenian with pustules on his skin, the Roman soldier covered in plague scars, the Byzantine merchant with buboes and blackened limbs, the baker's son in Bristol burning with fever, the old man in Moscow coughing blood, the soldier at Camp Devon's turning blue as he drowned in his own fluids. And now Michael, dancer turned patient, another casualty in humanity's endless war against infectious disease. You could despair, you could surrender to the futility of it all, the seemingly endless cycle of suffering that repeats across millennia. Instead, you stand, gather your things, and prepare to face another day, because that's what humans do in the face of pandemics. They continue, they adapt, they help where they can, they bear witness to suffering and try, however imperfectly, to alleviate it. This pandemic, like all others, will eventually recede. AIDS will become treatable, manageable, no longer an automatic death sentence. Decades from now, new generations will know it as a chronic condition rather than a plague that decimated entire communities. But other diseases will emerge. Other challenges will arise, and humans will face them as they always have, with fear and courage, with despair and hope, with the worst and best of what humanity has to offer. As you lock your apartment door behind you, stepping out into the morning sunlight, you carry with you the memories of all those lives, all those pandemics witnessed across time, the knowledge that suffering is universal but not endless, that night always gives way to dawn. That even in humanity's darkest hours, there are those who choose to light candles rather than curse the darkness. And perhaps that's the most important lesson of all, the wisdom earned through witnessing history's worst pandemics from the inside out, that no matter how terrible the disease, how overwhelming the suffering, how complete the societal breakdown, humanity endures, adapts, rebuilds, remembers, and sometimes learns. You walk toward the clinic, toward those who need you today, carrying this quiet certainty within you, a certainty born not of ignorance or denial, but of having seen the very worst that pandemics can bring, and knowing that even those pass eventually. Life continues, in some form, afterward. It's a perspective few can claim, this long view across centuries of human suffering and resilience, a perspective that brings, if not comfort, then at least context to the present moment. You reach the clinic, pausing for a moment before entering. Inside are people who need what you have to offer, your knowledge, your compassion, your presence, your unique understanding of what it means to live through a pandemic, to face mortality not in the abstract but in the immediate. Taking a deep breath, you open the door and step inside, ready to continue the work that connects you to all those healers who came before, in Athens, in Rome, in Constantinople, in Bristol, in Moscow, in Boston. Different times, different diseases, but the same essential task: to bear witness, to offer comfort, to fight back against the darkness with whatever tools are available. And to remember always that dawn follows even the longest night. As you fall asleep tonight, nestled in your comfortable bed, so different from the pallets and cots of earlier times, perhaps you'll dream of those other lives, those other pandemics. But let them be distant now, historical rather than immediate. Let your body relax, your mind drift, your breathing slow and deepen. For you are safe in this moment, warm, protected, the struggles of past and present pandemics releasing their hold as sleep embraces you, carrying you gently into dreams where humanity's long, complicated dance with disease gives way to visions of healing, of connection, of the quiet courage that sustains us through our darkest hours. Sleep now, rest. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, its own opportunities to make a difference. But for now, just breathe, just be. Let the weight of centuries lift from your shoulders as consciousness fades and sleep deep, peaceful sleep carries you away.